live on YouTube, and listen back on Spotify. This is the World of Football podcast.
Yes, everyone. It's Monday night. It's that time. You know what it is. You know that really great football show they show on Monday nights to discuss all the football? No, not Monday Night Football. It's the World of Football podcast. We're back for another evening. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting discussion. We've got a couple of topics today to discuss. I'd like to say quite juicy, actually, because of, let's just say, the content is quite heavy in terms of discussion. Whether we all agree with each other is another story. But yeah, you all know me. You all know what I'm about. But let me introduce the other two gentlemen on the panel with me. I've got Nathan, Mr. Cardiff City, with me. How you doing, my friend?
Mr. Drawfest is back again. Hope you're doing well, Julio. Hope you're doing well. Right below me, Reece. But yeah, in a way, even though I say it's bad that I missed an away day, this one, in a way, I'm glad I did. But Ruben Colwell, he is on another planet. Grinding out results, but one scary stat, we haven't won a 3 o'clock away game now in over a year.
Let's get
on with it tonight.
Yeah, and below us both is Mr. Devil's Rising, Mr. Weekly Steel Chair, our good friend Reece. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you. As you can see, I'm in perfectly good health. I've mutated into several transfixed colours, and this is my chaos era in full flux. Welcome, one and all, to the Weekly Steel Chair's additional show, because I take over the show. Everybody knows that. So welcome to the World of Football podcast for another Monday edition.
It is his show.
Absolutely.
It is your show indeed. Yeah, it is. Apologies for anyone listening, by the way. I'm feeling a little under the weather today, but I am committed to the cause, and I'm also scared of Reece's backlash as well. But the less said about that, the better. I mean, Reece, your chaotic phase is, I think, 2 months too late, if I'm being perfectly honest. But you know,
it's never late. I'm never late when it comes to chaos. Never.
Fair enough. If you want to continue that reputation, then who am I to judge? Listen, we've got a lot to get through, so let's just cut to the chase. Why don't we, gentlemen? Let's start with obviously our common thing, our common structure with the Premier League review. Interesting weekend all round. I want to touch on, however, the bottom of the league, because I think that now it's November, we're 11 games in, and things are going to start to get interesting. You know, forget the manager talk. We'll come to that because it is that time of year. We've got about 6 or 7 teams down there. You know, I mean, between 4 of them, there are 2 of them on level points. You know, Burnley, Sheffield United are both on 4. You know, Luton and Bournemouth, are on 6, and then you've got Everton on 11. So in the grand scheme of things, maybe a healthy difference, but you know that can change in 2 games. And not to mention this whole charges points deduction thing that's looming over their head currently. And then above them, you've got Fulham, Wolves, and Chelsea on 12, and then Forest on 13, and then West Ham on 14. You know, the fact of the matter is, we've got, you know, even though there's a healthy points difference between 16th and 17th, in a relegation battle between now and Christmas, that could change. For all we know, we could see Everton in the bottom 3. Forget the fact that they could get a 12-point deduction, which will take them down to -1.
The league theoretically is taking shape as expected.
Yes.
I think the teams that are down there in the bottom 5, the bottom 6, we all knew would be down there. I think Bournemouth might have been the one that we might have been surprised about, simply because we saw a new manager come in to implement a style of play and not a heavy level investment, but
In my opinion, though,
a good amount.
comparing, like I said this at the start of the season as well, comparing with the rest of the squads from about their bottom to 15th, I'd say Bournemouth have one of the strongest squads. So bringing in Iraola's style of play and with his pedigree that he did in La Liga, it is a bit of a shock of the way that it has ended up for him, to be honest.
I think the only thing that's changed realistically, and this is the difference being, is that I think the players are still I think they're still adapting, but in the slowest way, and I think that's not going to help him, especially when the talks were that he was the favourite to be sacked first in recent period of time. He was the built favourite to be sacked first. It wasn't Rob Edwards or anything like that, or company. It was Iraola, which I did think was a bit harsh in the sense of it. But obviously, this is a business, let alone an entertainment as well. I think the one thing that fans do quite badly, though, is fans get very attached to a manager, and when they get so attached, it's never the question of they want him out, whereas other clubs don't have that feel. It's the minute something goes wrong for them immediately, it's manager needs to go, and we need to bring in somebody else who can get the tune out of the players, because it's never the players' fault. But it is, in fact, the players' fault, because the manager can put tactics out on the field, and then give instructions to play. But if the players don't follow instructions, what's the manager supposed to do? Like, if you're given instructions, like, for example, I can give you an easy one. So, for example, Sir Alex Ferguson team against Liverpool 08-09. For example, we're by far the best team in football. Obviously, the Barcelona team at the time is starting to take shape, but until the end of the season, they're not really the best team in Europe. Man United are the best team in Europe. So when you look at it in that sense, Liverpool versus Man United is at Anfield. Obviously, we lost that game, but the tactics are quite simple. The tactics were to be in a compact defensive shape within the 4-4-2. Ronaldo's going to play high upfield. Rooney's going to be in a position where we can get the ball to him, and he's going to dictate whether we're going to get a goal or not in that attacking third. And the midfield are going to be relatively close to the box for a counter-attack. So there's instructions. The players don't follow those instructions, they're replaced. Fast forward years later, you've got the exact same thing. Iraola's got Bournemouth set up in his system. If the centre-backs are being told to push up to a higher position so they can release the ball in a better attacking position, and they're not, they're 4 or 5 yards deeper, they've already disobeyed the manager's instruction that they've given. Another significant thing as well, for example, is you're playing Chelsea under Pochettino. So Pochettino won his defence organised in a position where they're going to be similarly in a narrow, compact defence, but they're going to be high press and it's going to be aggressive. If there's no indication of aggression in the press, they're dropped and they're replaced by people that are going to do the job. So I think that's what Iraola's having, is they're not turning up trees for him. And that's another issue that managers have, where I agree managers at times should be sacked and managers should be replaced. But I think these players, first of all, should be questioned, because significantly, it doesn't look like they're actually doing what's asked of them. And I think that's affecting Iraola. I agree Bournemouth shouldn't be where they are. But one team that's going to be safe, and I still stand by it, a lot of people have them relegated. I don't. Luton Town.
I agree.
I think they're still maintaining a difference to the league, but it's still not enough for them yet. They still need more points, but I think they're still the best suited to survive.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think all of us were in agreement whether we had Luton to go down or to stay up. I think we're in agreement that of all the teams who came up, probably the most likely would be, I mean, I predicted Burnley to stay up because I thought it would be that whole momentum thing that we've seen that with teams. They come up and they carry that momentum in with them.
Understandable.
But I think but when you think about in turn, if all teams were going to have a terrible season, the one that's probably going to show the most fight, that's probably going to show the most sort of underdog mentality, but against all odds, it was going to be Luton Town. You know, we saw with Norwich, they came up under Daniel Farke. They didn't do well their style of play. Then they adapted, and then they went back down because it just wouldn't work.
Football was shocking at the
Exactly.
end of the
So
day. But
What's
I think
ironic is, sorry, I don't mean to cut you there, Nathan.
That's right.
There's something that was very interesting about Norwich. It's the same thing I say about Huddersfield. They played that German style. For an English team playing a German style, obviously not many clubs in England have actually done it. Liverpool have done it because Jurgen Klopp, they maintain time with Jurgen Klopp because the resource is big and valuable. I still think, even though I'm not a fan of Daniel Farke, and I never will be, everybody knows that, and I'm not particularly interested in Norwich, but I think, and I say the same for Huddersfield under Wagner, they should have stuck to the high pressing style they played. If you actually look at it, the first game of the season that Norwich had, what, 4-3 against Liverpool? Was it something like that? It was a
I
high
think it was like
scoring game.
4-1. It was
pretty
4-1,
sure
still
one of
high,
the
but you
seasons they
could
beat
see
Man
that
City
Norwich
as
were
well.
trying. But yeah,
Yeah,
they
but it was
beat
still-
Man City a couple weeks later.
But it was so aggressive, and I'm like, why did you change? You come up to the league playing a certain style. Don't adapt. It's like what I said about Ten Hag, what, 2-3 weeks ago? Don't adapt to the league. Force the league to adapt to you. Their style of play worked in the championship for a reason. Norwich were brutal in the championship. Like they were. Chance creation, conversion, shots per game, the amount of goals they scored on average. They were terrorising the league with that aggressive high pressing style. Huddersfield, it slowed down a bit towards the end, but that's because they didn't have a big enough squad. But once you came to the Prem, they shouldn't have changed their style. They should have said the same thing. Teams would have struggled against them. And it would have been very easy to notice as well. I think they got it wrong by a massive landslide. Luton Town haven't changed their style. If you actually look at it, Luton are playing the same way as they did in the Championship. So they haven't adapted to the league in any shape or form. They've just carried on. Burnley have completely adapted to the league. Like they've changed. They don't play their style anymore, and it's actually quite evident. I think they've gone slightly backwards. But I think that's because the fear that they can go down with the amount of players that they've brought in and the looming possibility of deductions to them, because it was still hanging over their heads. And I think it still is. But I don't think Vincent Kompany should change his style. As for Sheffield United, same old, same old. I mean, it's like a broken record. That's what they should be called now, Broken Record United. But when you look at it in a nutshell, I think certain teams change their style because they think their style worked in the Championship won't work in the Premier League. It doesn't work unless you try it.
I think another example of that, and I think leading on from what you were saying, the closest comparison that you've got to bring with it, with what's happening this season, is that 18-19 season. So, for example, you could describe, even though they didn't finish top, Fulham as the big spenders coming up through the playoffs, very comparable to that Burnley side. Lots of hype, lots of force of finishing mid-table. Some of the caliber
Absolutely.
coming in from abroad was crazy, but abandoned their principles. Slavitski Johanovic, I don't know what on earth happened, completely did not remember how to organise a defence. The attacking play in the Championship was just phenomenal. Didn't play Mitrovic, as Reece said. He just got completely dropped to the bench. And then we all know what's history from there. Out he goes the door. In comes Ranieri, sacked again. And then in comes Scott Parker, who didn't even get a tune out of them. They were completely abysmal. On the other kettle of fish, you had Cardiff coming up as major underdogs for the squad that we had. It was added to resourcefully, even though some players that came in were extremely wasteful and an absolute waste of money they were as well. But Neil Warnock kept the principles to what we were playing in the Championship. Fast-paced, fluid, counter-attacking, low possession football, which really worked for us, and we adapted the league to fit around it. And we were robbed. Everyone knows the story of how we were robbed, and I won't go into that further. But at the end of the day, you have this is what I'm seeing this season once again. Burnley are the Fulhams of 18-19, and Luton are the Cardiffs, and very well could stay up.
It's a shame really, because I thought, even though I had Burnley to get relegated, I was starting to change my tune a little bit, thinking, actually, hold on, they're playing some decent football. Maybe they will stay up. But then they just adapted, and I'm like, why? Don't adapt to the league.
That's their downfall, because ultimately, the second you adapt to the league, you get found out. I mean, we all know that they've regressed from last season with the quality that they have in their squad. Like the key players that they were using to get to the Premier League, they just abandoned or sold. Scott Twine, biggest example. Now he's at Hull.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
just an absolute madness. And then we all know about what happened with Sheffield United with their transfer policy. Like, no director of football, but one was massively needed there by a mile. And then Luton Town, who just seems to get stronger and stronger and stronger and have done everything right. So at the end of the day, it comes in swings and roundabouts.
I think Luton Town have also done the biggest, most important thing as well. They've actually seen that last year when you came to look at a squad that got promoted that maybe people thought should have got there was Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
And obviously Forest went crazy on spending, but they had no other choice. Everybody knows this now. Like, Nottingham Forest had no choice. The amount of players they had on loan or anything like that in their squad, they were there purely to get promoted. They've then
at the end of
built
the
a
day,
team
that
that's
promotion season
sustainable.
was absolutely mental because Steve Cooper comes in. Was that after? Yeah, that was after Chris Hughton.
He literally just
battered
came
by
in as
Cardiff.
Christmas was ending, which is crazy.
Yeah. Came in and was like, right, I can get this squad to the Premier League. When we get to the Premier League, deal with it then. But I remember the paper-thin squad that he had and the limited resources, the way that you have to adapt to that, and even getting a promotion to the Premier League in the first place that year was just
Incredible.
an absolute miracle. So
Yep.
in some cases, just throwing out the checkbook and getting who you can is absolutely essential, because if Forest had that team that they had in the Championship, they would have been eaten whole. The quality and depth was just non-existent.
Yeah, I think the key thing is the recruitment, and obviously because Slavisa Jokanovic's rep at the time was he'd go into clubs and it would take a year or so for his style of play to embed. He'd taken so long, he'd got them up, and then suddenly he had abandoned those principles. When you look at, I think what kept Huddersfield, I've said this before on the show, that what kept Huddersfield up was the fact that there were teams who had there were 3 teams with worse shit shows than they had.
Correct.
As in there were 3 teams, 4 actually, because I think they finished above Southampton and Southampton stayed up.
Southampton finished below them, but then obviously what changed the following year, Southampton went, see you later, fuck this shit, we're going up.
They were just, the thing is, Huddersfield couldn't almost weaponize their squad enough to match the fact that the other teams, especially the ones coming up, because we had that Wolves team come up as well. That Streets Won't Forget team came up.
Yeah.
Well, that's been forgotten now. That team's already been forgotten.
That's been decimated. Do you know what I mean? Their Streets of 2019 squad gone, practically gone now, gutted. And I just think that, especially with Huddersfield and Norwich, you saw they had a lot of German or at least Bundesliga experienced players coming in terms of that's where they were coming from. Even when Norwich came up last time, like the signing of Rashica, for example, he came from the Bundesliga. You know, all these signings that these 2 clubs were making were signings that fit what they had. But then as the season went on, they changed it. Now, no one was expecting Norwich to stay up when they had, Hanley at centre back. Let's be real here. But I just think that when you change the style of play, especially with the recruitment you've just made, there's only one way you're going, unless there's teams below you that are worse. This is why I worry for Everton, for example, not just this season, but next season. Everton are on 11 points, which isn't the worst feat in the world. But you've got Luton, Burnley, and Sheffield United, 3 teams on paper have come up and they haven't got the quality, you could argue. You've got Bournemouth, who haven't quite settled into what Iraola wants. We've all agreed, I think, on this show that when Iraola would come in, which obviously there's a season, second half of the season, we're going to see the goods come from that. They're going to be in some good form towards the end of the season, and within the last 10 games of the season, they're going to go on a crazy good run, and they're going to stay up because of that. But I just think that with Everton, for example, because there's teams below them that aren't doing as well, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not the worst situation in the world for them, but I just think that next season, they might not have that. Now, who knows what's going to happen with Everton? We're going to get new owners come in, and they're going to invest. You know what I mean? Like, I think just their 1-1 draw at the weekend was, I think, very unlucky. Like, it was just that, how do you pick yourself up from that, in the sense of you're winning 1-0 and then it deflects off your 37-year-old right back and it just loops up and goes over Pickford and it goes in. It's just like, what do you do with that? It's just terrible luck. And you've lost out on 2 points there because of that. And I think Everton should have the right man in place. And I think that's what matters for teams. I think if you have the right people in place and if you're doing everything the right way, then I think you'll be fine. I think it's clear to see what Sean Dyche is doing, and they are looking a little better. But I just think that you worry about the situation around them, because there are just games where they just don't look that great.
Yep.
I completely agree.
So I just think that, I mean, you've got the likes of Fulham in there, Wolves and Chelsea all on 12 points. You know, Wolves, a lot of us tipped to potentially go down. They're getting their points now. They're looking solid, but we've seen this before. We've seen teams look solid before and like surprise everyone a little bit. For example, hit a good run of form, look good around Christmas time, that they might actually do it. And then after Christmas, it just goes downhill and they end up getting dragged in and relegated anyway.
Yeah, the one that, and Wolves could be a massive opaque to this as well, in particular with their squad depth. Palace seem to do it year after year after year, just go on a shocking run of form over Christmas. And then that second half of the season, everything just clicks together. And then they always finish in that mid-table spot. I have a feeling that could happen to Wolves this season, but it's going to put Gary O'Neill massively in jeopardy as well. Because at the end of the day, he's not a big name. He's not with the style of play that the Wolves fans are looking for, and they're not used to under Bruno Lage, Nuno Espirito Santo, etc., etc. But if they struggle, they have to keep persistent with O'Neill, because he'll put it right in the new year when things calm down, when fixture congestion eases on them. However, if they push the panic button, that's where it could get a bit 50-50. It's either they rock it or they absolutely plummet down the table. But another thing, wow.
Just want to add to that, there's potentially a penalty coming up right now. There's a VAR check right now for a Chelsea penalty.
Interesting.
It was a deflected effort as well from Kulusevski.
Actually, saying that, there's been a Tottenham red card.
Yep.
Swear.
Tottenham red, and it's a straight red for Romero.
Oh, yeah, penalty. I got it.
Colour me shocked.
Romero's nasty tackle on Fernandes before sending the centre back off. That took about 5 minutes or something.
In fact, I'm even going to show it.
That's Udogie. That's Udogie on Sterling as well.
That is heads up.
He got a booking for that. He did get a booking for that. Yeah. Sterling's goal was ruled off as well.
It has to be a red card for Romero, I think, in that position.
Romero's definitely been given a red. He's gone. Peter Drury at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Christian Romero walks. Apparently, he was
I find it interesting. I find it interesting because I think Romero is a quality player, but I think that as a centre back, if you're almost emotionally unstable in these big games, like granted, we love seeing defenders get into like high flying tackles, you know, the Sergio Ramoses, the Pepes of the days. But if you can't control it, if you can't maintain some control, then expect to be fined by your manager and expect like suspensions, because that's all that's going to happen. We know that Romero and Van der Ven are a quality centre back partnership, but
agreed.
Yeah, it's just the general loss of head, isn't it?
It's almost like you bring it on yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Just seen here, so Tottenham have scored. Cole Palmer's equalised from the penalty spot. That's his second penalty converted. Cole Palmer, quality player, off the post as well. But it's Johnson that's actually came off for Eric Dyer.
Oh my god! I was just about to say, like, if Romero's getting sent off, who do they bring on? Eric Dyer. But I think there was question marks about Romero before the game.
So they're going to play.
I don't know why.
Listen, so they'll play that 4-4-1-1. But it means Son's up front on his own. Kulusevski, Maddison, Brennan Johnson. You know what's mad? I think he's made the wrong choice. I would have kept Brennan Johnson on. I think what he should have done, personally, I would have dropped, even though it's a big risk, I would have dropped Madison into a deeper role beside Basuma. And I would have kept, I would have still brought Eric Dyer on if that's the change. But I would have played Madison in an 8 role, East Basuma in a holding role. I think taking off Brennan Johnson is a massive mistake because he's a brilliant wide player. I would have kept Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson as wide players. I would have taken off either Papi Sarr or I'd taken off East Basuma and I would have dropped Madison into an 8 role because he already does that in game
I
anyway.
think
Yeah,
what he's
that's
done
sensible.
there is to maintain some kind of balance. Because I think even though, like you said, it's a risk, James Maddison in the 8, maybe he's almost too risky. And I think what he's done is he's gone, I've got to take off one of my attacking players to maintain that defensive structure. It's almost like a don't lose it. If we can get a draw, great. If we can get a win, great. But don't lose it.
Potentially.
And I think the thought process probably is, well, Madison's my big hitter right now, so as is Son. Kulusevski, I can always probably count on to produce a moment of magic. So I think that
No,
Brennan
true.
Johnson's
No,
sacrificed because he's not the bigger net. That's what I think probably is the thought process
I think
behind
that's
it.
fair.
But I do
It's still
agree to an
crazy
extent,
they're the
Reece,
only
actually.
team. Yeah, it's still crazy. They're the only team left in the league that's actually properly unbeaten.
Well, when you've got
I-
no midweek games, it's not a relatively good squad with some good players. I don't think it's that hard.
Well, it is though, because you could arguably say that the Chelsea squad is just as good as Tottenham, and yet they are so far behind Tottenham.
They're so mismatched, though. There's so many new players that came in last year, and then by the
There
time
is,
they've
but when
tried
you
to
look at
embed in,
squad though,
half of it's gone and a new batch has come in. So I just think it's a whole
aye,
mess
but
in
when you look
itself.
at, you still look at the level of their squad though, it's still insane. I still don't understand why Pochettino is insisting on playing Gallagher as an attacking midfielder. That's the only thing I don't understand is why he's insisting on Gallagher being an attacking midfielder. Conor Gallagher can't even attack his own bloody box, let alone attack an opposition box.
I don't know.
Very
I mean,
strange.
the Chelsea team just still feels a bit mismatched. You spend all that money on midfielders in the last 9 months when you've got the likes
Horse
of
United done that.
Lavia, Caicedo, and Fernandes, and you're still fielding the likes of Conor Gallagher. That's no disrespect to him, but I just think that there isn't enough stability in the center of the park. And then with all the attackers, either just they don't feel like, you look at Nicholas Jackson, for example, he's not ready made. Mudryk, he's not ready made. Cole Palmer's looking good. He was looking good at the start of the season with City as well. So it just seems a lot like there's potential there. There's individuals there. So I think for them, it will need a lot of time to mold because there's almost like a lot of factors to come into play here.
Yeah, and in my opinion as well, they're not exactly being mentored in because when Todd Bowley's come in, it seems that he's always wanted to do just these massive clear outs. And then, say, for example, Nicholas Jackson hasn't had that experienced player to sort of edge him in and ease him in.
Jackson's the kind of player you get as an understudy to a. So if they had prime Diego Costa in this team currently, for instance, you'd bring in Jackson as an understudy. I think just throwing him in there is hurting his development. I don't think Sterling is as good as he thinks he is. That's no disrespect. I think Raheem Sterling is a good player, but apart from the fact he's had a rough couple of years in terms of like club form, I think that what helped him was when he was in a machine City team. When he was at Liverpool, for example, granted younger and not had the coaching of Pep, when the likes of Suarez had left and Sturridge was out injured all the time, Sterling, there was so much hype and attention around Sterling to be the main man, and he didn't provide, and he still went for that £50 million to City, and it was not the same thing. I think City then had a bit more.
Yeah, it's because
them,
I'm pretty sure he wanted
issues.
like 200k a week from Liverpool. Yeah. And Liverpool were just like, absolutely not. So
I don't think he warranted it, to be honest.
He didn't.
And I think think Raheem Sterling is great when he's in a well-oiled Man City team, like when it's a machine. But I think when the going is tough, I don't think he's the player you can hang your hat on and say, he's my franchise player. He's not Harry Kane, for example.
For me, he's just a squad player.
If anything, was about to make a comparison, but actually I think it was the wrong comparison to make, so just ignore me. But yeah, I completely agree that if you've got like loads of other superstars around you that are performing at the best, then you will see a 20-goal a season Raheem Sterling. The only time we've seen Raheem Sterling play well when City weren't was when they lost the title to Liverpool in 1920, when they really fell off. Going forward, they were still good, but their midfield and defensive structure wasn't great. And then by the time that they picked up again, Liverpool were already like 20 points ahead, so it was over.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I think that I don't know. I think that Sterling, what is he, 30 now? I think him being almost the main man in this Chelsea team isn't doing himself any favors either. That's not
And
to
it's
say
not-
he
it's-
should go somewhere else. You know, I mean, if Saudi came in, it wouldn't surprise me if he went. Not because I think he's a money grabber of any kind, but just if they're going to get any top player from 2 years ago that's a little bit washed now, maybe, or in the wrong team, you can kind of see where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah.
But I just think that there's so much going on around him. It's not helping him either. I think last year he didn't have a good year. Neither did a lot of Chelsea players. But everyone's trying to find their feet now. And it's when you're at a club of the size of Chelsea, I think they'll do enough to stay up. I think they'll get better as the season goes on. But
Saying that, there's another booking. Yellow to Ange
Um,
Postecoglou.
mate. I don't know, Reece, you want to add anything on this?
Nah, I don't think there's anything to add. To be fair, I
Couldn't
think
be
he's
all, to be
above
fair.
right. Yeah,
That's fair
I
enough.
think he's
So,
above. I think he's above right.
fair enough. Regarding then, just before we move on, regarding obviously the bottom of the league, quickly before we head to our beloved Manchester club, who do we think is? Do we think who do we think is going to go down? What twist do you think will entail as the season goes on?
I still think it's too early to call, but I still think Sheffield United and Burnley are the two immediate names. That's all I'm sticking with right now. I'm not adding a third until
That's fair
maybe
enough.
February.
To be honest, mate, I think that's probably the wisest decision.
So
I think 20 and 19 are so easy to figure out. It's 18th place.
It's just who between the two teams gets 19 and 20.
I still think Burnley are definitely going to finish bottom of the league.
Okay.
Interesting.
I said it on the predictions. I still stand by it. I think they'll finish bottom.
See that Sheffield United are going to everyone and in with the mentality of we're shit, we're shit, so we're going to try and shithouse as many points as we can.
Yeah.
Whereas Burnley are in
they're Sheffield United.
They
are
know what
fighting
they're
for
about.
Points.
Yeah.
Sheffield United
Burnley
are
are in a
physically
bit of
fighting
a
for points.
halfway
You can
houses.
see it. They're fighting. They're fighting on the
absolutely
field.
are.
They're actually giving everything to fight. I don't see it in the Burnley players. I don't see it at all.
Yeah,
I think there's the confusion.
Going back to it, and I know I'm going to be sort of very hypocritical, obviously supporting that Cardiff team in 18-19, but I am going to say that Sheffield United are going to finish with those record low points. It's
possible.
Just with what I've been seeing. I mean, looking at the last few performances and the amount of goals that they have conceded, in particular to the heavy hitting teams, and there are a lot of heavy hitting teams this season scoring a lot of goals. I can see them grinding out. Apart from one, indeed. I can see them grinding out the odd point here and there, or the odd victory against a Wolves team who are not at the races. But aside from that, it's going to be record low for me. Burnley, pretty much certain to finish in 19th. Maybe can see company going at the end of the season. In 18th, I'm going to be like Reece. Too close to call. And for me, it's only between the following: Luton, Everton, Wolves. I think Fulham will drag their way out of it.
Yeah.
Fulham need goals, though.
They do.
Fulham need goals.
A little bit of a fun story before we move on, just for everybody, because this is, for some reason, randomly popped up on my phone. I don't know why. It's an article by... It's unfortunately... it's come from United in Focus, but it relates to the Daily Mail, apparently, so take it with a pinch of salt. But it's quite funny. It's just an article saying that if it hadn't been for a broken ankle, Emiliano Izagiri, who let's be real, I didn't think much of him at Celtic. Funnily enough, nearly joined Man United. It would have been him as backup, not Alexandra Butner.
Oh,
Not gonna lie, that
okay.
would have been funny. Izagiri,
I was
though,
gonna say,
I don't think
I
much
was
of him.
aware when you said that name. I thought circa 2011, 2012 that name, and that was around the time we signed Alex Butner. So
Yeah, but apparently, if it wasn't for an ankle injury, he would have moved to United for about $6.5 million.
Wow.
I would never give Celtic that amount of money for a left back that I thought was shit.
well, you would say that, wouldn't you?
No, I genuinely thought he was shit. I don't think all Celtic players are shit, but I thought he was.
Jesus Christ.
Like, I would have paid Man United in 2001, despite getting Van Nistelrooy, I would have spent 30-40 million on Henrik Larsson in 2001, 2004.
Jesus Christ.
I would have. I'm not even joking. I would have spent 30-40 million because that's how much
Some
I
of the
think he actually was
players we were close to getting or linked with in the early 2000s. I remember reading an article about a double deal for Thuram and Cannavaro.
That would never
before
happen.
Rio. I know it would have never happened, but just reading that kind of paper talk now is just a bit like
any player apart from Veron would never have joined United from Serie A, just because it was Serie A.
Heads up, newsflash.
Ooh.
That's a bad injury for Tottenham in that case.
So
Well,
Romero's been suspended. Van der Ven has just gotten injured.
There goes Tottenham's hopes of winning the league.
Jamie O'Hara brought this on Spurs. He literally said, what was it yesterday? Like, why can't Spurs challenge for the league?
That exact reason.
Shut up.
He's jinxed his old club. Love it.
Well, he said
I'm
Tottenham
here for
Hotspur
it.
were back when Conte was hired, but what does that even mean?
I think he meant that Tottenham are going to finally win a domestic cup because they haven't won one in 14 years. Crazy is though, is they could still technically win one this year. They're still in the FA Cup.
Hasn't even started yet.
True, but the problem for them now is with Van de Ven injured, like a torn hamstring.
Well, here's the
That's not
thing
good
on
for him.
Spurs. What I will say is,
He's
first
in
3
team of the
months.
season right now. He's probably been the best centre back in the league this year so far. Van de Ven.
Everything's been going well for Spurs so far. And everyone has been saying, oh, but look at Ten Hag United, he's not doing well. But then look at Ange at Spurs, got them doing exactly what he wants. Like, I just think that when a new manager comes in, the first 3 months, I don't think tells the whole story. I think that's something to learn because Ollie came in and within 3 months of his caretaker role, he managed to talk himself into the job permanently.
Which was wrong.
Well, any competent football club with a football sporting director may have suggested that. Listen, I love Dolly and I was embedded in their childish hype, but I just think that.
No, what I'm saying is, if the intention is still to give Solskjaer the job, then you do it at the very end of the season. You actually give him the whole. You give him the full period to actually prove himself, not because we just managed to beat PSG. I mean, there was still a monumental win, but we just managed to beat PSG. After that, he got the full-time job. We didn't win a single game for the rest of the season.
Do you know what? I'm glad we didn't, because what keeps happening at United, who obviously we're going to come to now, but what keeps happening at United is these players go on a cycle, new manager bounce, they all look good, and you think, oh, maybe it's not as much of a rebuild as we think. And then Ollie got the job permanently, and then they fell off, and you could really see that he's not good enough, he's not good enough, he doesn't want to be here. Why is he here? I have no idea. So I'm just glad that, because can you imagine if we got into the summer, we'd achieved top 4, we got a good level of investment, and we started the season as badly as we ended it.
I think, in my opinion, as well.
First impression.
I think, in my opinion, with looking at United, as the way you've just described it, there's this sort of element of fear that is injected into the players every time a new manager is appointed. And the second that they're in, they realize, okay, we can just run riot. The manager's now in. He's got his ideas. That the above aren't going to give the budget that are required. And because we're such loved by the fans, we're just going to do what we want. Whereas the second you get that caretaker in and starts to lay down the authority, that very quickly gets swept out of the way, the further down the line it goes, they're worried because they're not going to get in the team. They're going to be forced out within January or summer, whatever that is. But when they're embedded in the plans and show what they can do, they're basically saying, okay, he has the talent, he wants to be there, but he's just not showing it at the moment. That's what we're seeing
Fellaini
way
was
too
gone
much
for
with.
like 5 minutes. Ollie came in, played Fellaini for about 5 minutes, I think, and he was gone.
Exactly.
Now, Fellaini was useful when he was with us. Let's have it right. When you played to his strength, he was actually quite useful. But this was 6 months after we gave him a new contract, when it seemed like he'd held us to ransom a little bit, where he was like, I don't know. I mean, I've liked it here, but I don't know. I've got offers elsewhere.
At the end of the day, it's just timing, the way you all look at it.
Well, you say timing, but I just think that obviously if Jose was staying longer, then obviously Fellaini would have played more. But I just think when you look at Marouane Fellaini, what he was doing at United, the fact that it gotten so bad that Jose wouldn't bring on Rashford or Martial for a game. He'd bring on Fellaini to try and get the goal. And I just think Ollie coming in with obviously this heritage of the United of old almost. He comes in and he sees what it's become and he goes, right, well, you're never going to catch me doing that. Like, because Ollie came in with his ideas, and when he got the job, his idea was to be this like very dynamic, fit, pressing team. And then the mistake he made, which is what everyone else has made, which is what Reece criticizes everyone else has made, is adapted to what they've got and abandoned that.
Doesn't matter who gets the job. Like if Diego Simeone became the Man United manager and he adapted to the league instead of making the team instead of making the league adapt to him, I would have called the same thing out on him. Like, we already know how he plays: aggressive, compact, defensive style, and it actually wins. Like Ten Hag style, if he actually goes back to what his style does, he wins things. I mean, it's not rocket science.
You come into a club, you go into a job with your principles, and but the fact of the matter is, the workforce don't like it, or you can't do it with that workforce. Unfortunately, you can't get rid of people.
If they don't, if you go into a job as a manager, any job, and you're getting a management role, of course you're going to have that process where you're going to be talking to your team. You're going to be like in team meetings. You're going to have individual meetings. You're going to get used to your team in a working environment. You're not going to directly watch them because that's creepy. But you're going to observe your team dynamic. You're going to see who actually fits in, who doesn't fit into your team, and whether they be a popular person or not. If they are culturally affecting your team even by their own personality, it can be a big thing. Unfortunately, big personalities can be good, but they can also be bad. So if, say it's me, for example, in my team, I know I'm quite a big personality, but if my manager didn't like the impact I'm having on the team, where I'm dominating the team dynamic or I'm dominating the conversation, and it's not helping others to showcase themselves, I know I would still, even if I'm still a good worker and hard working, and all that, and I'm experienced, I would still be out of the job, or I'd be told, like, we need to do things differently because you're not working. And if I refused to do that, or I didn't change, I would be out of a job. So a football player is no different, and people have that emotional attachment to players, and this is something that I have at times been guilty of. I'm no longer the case. I don't have that feeling anymore, unless it's certain players.
Who?
There used to be a lot of players. I used to think that these players genuinely gave a damn. I don't think of them like that anymore. I think of them if they need to go, they need to go.
Wow.
I don't care.
They really sold you dreams, didn't they?
They sold me a lie, and I'm no longer whatever anymore. I said it months ago. Like, I'm done defending these players, except a rare few that actually care. You won't see me criticize Alejandro Garnacho even if he has a stinker, because he actually plays like he gives a fuck. I'm not going to give Rasmus Højlund shit like that, although he needs to start scoring goals. But United have already held him out to dry because they spent too much money on him. I'm not going to do the same with Lisandro Martinez, because Martinez actually gives a fuck even if he gets injured. Casemiro's the exact same. He's an absolute psychopath, but he plays for the team. Fernandes I'll criticise left, right and centre, even though he's one of my favourite players in this team. It's no surprise as well that David De Gea actually came out on his Instagram and said that Fernandes should not be the captain of Manchester United. That came out a couple of days ago.
I think that was a joke.
No, that wasn't a joke. He
No,
actually
the way I interpreted it was
he
because
responded to a comment. He responded to a comment about Man United particularly and Fernandes, and he said he should not be the captain. So when we talk about United behind the scenes, he works hard for the team. As a professional, we see this. Fernandes a lot, despite his constant bitching, will run up and down that field. But you can clearly see why on earth would a player who's no longer at the club, why would they say something like that? Why would De Gea, of all people, who's had a lot of shit from Man United fans, why would he come out and say he isn't the one who should be captain of this team? There's no other way to interpret that. If you think about it, there isn't.
Hear me out. The emoji De Gea used was the zip mouth emoji. Now, what I think has happened there is because obviously Fernandes has come under criticism recently, and rightly so,
Needs
for
to
the
shut
way
his hole.
the way he moans about everything. Okay, now whatever way you want to say, well, these players used to do that or whatever. Like Cesc Fabregas was captain of Arsenal, and he used to do it all the time. So Arsenal fans can't even complain about a captain that moans. But
I
the
think
way
also as well, he was slightly different. I do agree. Cesc Fabregas used to bitch a lot, but also there was times where Cesc Fabregas actually pulled his team back. You know what I mean? Like he actually
But there's that balance, and not everyone has the balance. The way I interpreted that De Gea comment was the way. No, I don't see that with Fernandes either. I think you see Fernandes get stuck in a lot more. The way I interpreted that comment was De Gea almost quoting what everyone was saying in a way as a bit of a sarcastic joke in a way.
It could be the case.
Yeah, that's the way I interpreted it, because Grant Matter also put like something about so humble, so professional, etc., etc., etc. about Fernandes. So I don't know. I mean, for all we know, Reece, you could be right. I mean, well, you are right.
I think it's certainly a possibility. I think he needs those players that have obviously commented on it. They really need to tell him. Like, it's actually not a shame if the likes of Juan Mata and David De Gea physically call up Bruno Fernandes and tell him, mate, on the football field, we know it's emotional, but you need to stop and think. Because he's so erratic. And we've seen it before, players are getting a reputation, and that's why referees are just immediately booking them. He's built that reputation for himself. He can no longer, even though he's a Man United captain, he can no longer go up to a referee and actually have a conversation with the referee about a decision. He's actually fucked. Like, it could be a serious challenge on a player of his own team, like of our team, for example. It could be a serious challenge. He goes over to the referee to discuss it. The referee is gonna completely think differently, and they're gonna book him. He is. Think about it as a captain in general. He is remotely finished. His power, or any potential power he could have, has been completely swept under him because of the moaning, and it's a shame.
I think the issue is
that is where
there
he's at
aren't
now.
a lot of other players who can hold up that armband unless it's someone who's just walked through the door. Like Varane hasn't been here that long. He's only been here, a couple of years. Casemiro, Lisandro Martinez have just been here over a month. Two of those players I just mentioned could be in Saudi this time next year for all we know.
They could.
You know? And I think that I agree with you completely. Like Harry Maguire's performances seem to have improved when he's not wearing the armband. So
maybe Maya just needs to retire the captaincy. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe they just stop wearing an armband. Who's your captain? We don't have one. We're just a team.
Yeah. I remember reading a leak a couple of years back when things were going wrong under Oli, that Ronaldo had walked in and he became the voice of the dressing room because it's Cristiano Ronaldo. And they obviously, the only problem he was posing at the time in that dressing room was Harry Maguire is your captain, Bruno Fernandes is your vice captain. But then this guy comes in. Granted, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, what else can I say about that? Do you know what I mean? But also, like, it undermines the other players in the dressing room. So suddenly you've got Ronaldo as the voice, Fernandes as his second, and then you've got the only player I read who stood up to Ronaldo was Cavani. The only player who would stand up to those two in some way, in some capacity, was Edinson Cavani. Edinson Cavani is a very experienced striker.
But at the end of the day as well, you got to add to that. That's another personality clash in the dressing room.
Exactly. Now, these things are always going to happen in football with personality clashes. I just think that when you have too many big egos in there, imagine if this was like the best. Imagine if you look at each footballer in that dressing room and it was the best version themselves in that dressing room. You had 17, 18 De Gea in there. Then you had 19, 20 Dean Henderson fighting him for the spot. He's going to be unhappy. Then you've got prime Edinson Cavani with prime Cristiano Ronaldo arguing with each other. And then 28 goals a season, whatever, Bruno Fernandes from the year before, all arguing with each other. Like it, and then imagine you've got the likes of prime Sancho, prime Pogba, prime Rashford in there, all getting upset, prime Martial, all getting upset with each other. There is a lot of ego there. Even when they're not performing that well, the players might maintain that ego as well.
And obviously, they're just still going to clash after the result. It's going to be, you
and
did
the thing
this
is,
wrong, you
we've
did
had
that wrong, you need to be dropped.
Since Jose's come in, we've had that. You know, we saw players do that under Jose. We saw players do that under Oli. We saw players do that under Rangnick, and we're seeing, I think, maybe not to a greater extent in terms of big names, like big egos, because they've achieved stuff in the game. But you've got like I think if you're gonna get in, you need, I think, 18, 20 players on your side. If Ten Hag doesn't have 7 players on side, he needs to get rid of them. Now, the problem we've got is we're in a chasm right now in terms of like what's going on upstairs and who's going to come in. Like, are we going to get a sporting structure in place? Is there pressure on Ten Hag? Now, Reece, I'll come to you first with this question. In terms of the manager, when is it that you find, there's 2 questions that are asked between a manager in this time there. And the question I want to ask is, where is that line? And the 2 scenarios are, we're giving the manager time, and then we're wasting our time. He needs to go. Where is the middle ground there? Where is that gray area where that sense of clarity? Because I think under Oli, there was the 5-0 against Liverpool. We all just, if you were Oli in up until then, like I was, then it was a point where it's getting too much for him now. It's getting to the point. Before, a couple of games before that, when we lost to Leicester, because we was under pressure, I said at the time, I want him to do well, but if he loses the next 10 games, then questions need to be asked. And it's been the same with every manager. So I just want to ask that this year we've got Liverpool at Anfield on the same weekend as we did when Jose was sacked. And at that point, we'd gone through all our tough games and he'd gone. And then Jose was gone. So Oli came in, we had easy games. The board tried to do that with Oli, but it just got to a point where against Watford, it was too much. We couldn't continue that against Chelsea and Arsenal. But where do you think is the point where it could turn from we're giving him time to we're wasting our time?
I think there are managers that can get their, even in a negative environment, there are managers that can get their style across within a year. There's some managers that can take 2 years. If you're taking longer than 2 years, then you're in the wrong job. So for me, Ten Hag has retrospect to introduce a style of play properly. It needs to be by the end of this season, because starting next year, it has to see real change. It has to see an actual style of play. There were times of it last year, but it wasn't consistent enough. You cannot go into your 3rd season still looking for a style of play. Same with Solskjaer. Like, Solskjaer had the same thing about, this is how I want to play. Well, if that's how you want to play, why have you not done it by now? Like, the excuses are insane. Like, it took Pep a year. Literally, he was still playing his style. Like, anyone who thinks that Pep wasn't playing his style with those players is a liar. The likes of Zabaleta, Gal Clichy, Bakary Sagna, they were still playing Pep style. They just couldn't sustain it long enough. So he replaced them with players that were actually capable of doing it in the long term. Look, Jurgen Klopp as well. Jurgen Klopp's style, they still played the same way, even with shit players at Liverpool.
I mean, at the end of the day, going back to your 3-year thing, look at the team that Klopp had when he first came into that Liverpool side halfway through the season.
They outworked Tottenham.
1-2 years later, the difference was staggering. just because
not
of
not
the
to
amount of players in there that just didn't work. So he's like, right, let's keep to what we're doing, keep grinding it out, make use of what we got, and then replace over time and still decimate teams. This is what's not. Ten Hag has missed a massive opportunity.
I still think he could be playing that aggressive style that he wants to do, like that transitional Dutch style. I think he's just lying to himself. He doesn't want to play. I think he does. But his comments are really stupid. I think he could still be coaching these players to play his style of play. And if they don't want to play his style of play, then play players that will actually listen to him, that will want to actively do it. So I think he can still do that by the end of this year, where even if the results are bad and they're still playing his style, you can see it forming. But theoretically, he has to do it by the end of this year, because next year is his third season. And if no one sees style of play in this team, then he's going to end up sacked. If not by the end of the season, he'll end up walking. Because I guarantee as well, and I'm not advocating that we go and get a manager like Simeone or Conte, because that, like, even though I like them as managers, I don't think that's right for us. I would only bring those in to punish the players. I would bring those managers in to punish the players for the shit they've done. But I guarantee if they walked in, you wouldn't hear any excuses. You would just see immediately Man United playing a back three under Conte, and it's that direct, aggressive style that he plays, and it's organised. And you would see two wing backs with a back three, two midfielders. One's a box to box, the other's a holding midfielder. You've got two wingers. One of them is likely to be further up the field. The other will drop deep to collect, and then you'll have a target man up front. Simeone will be the exact same, whether it be a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2. It'll be the same mechanised style. There'll be no excuses. It'll be you're in. You don't cut it. You're on the bench. It's got to. Ten Hag has got to make those decisions now for his style. There's players in there that can play his way. There are. I don't know why he's so reluctant to play it. The comments as well he made, saying these players aren't good enough to play my style, or whatever it is, or I'm not capable of doing it because it's totally different players. You went to Ajax playing the same way as you did at Vitesse Arnhem. So I'm sorry, mate, but your comments are hypocritical. Like, you played the same way at Vitesse as you did at Bayern B, well, the Bayern Munich's B squad. You're playing the same style. You went to Ajax. You've got the big job now that you wanted, and you're playing the same style. Slightly it changed in the second team. They were more aggressive in a different way, but they were still playing the same possession transitional football. So you've got no excuses. You've come to Man United. This is how you want to play. You implement your style, and if nobody wants to play your style, then you bring players in who want to play it, and you just tell those players you're not playing anymore. Like, you can sit on the bench, or sit in the reserves, you can get your money, and I'll have a squad, 18 to 24 players who actually want to play my way. It's not hard. Like, it's not hard for Ten Hag to do this. I think he's just too much of a pussy, because that's what he's doing. He's acting like a pussy. Like Pep Guardiola, like at Man City, like, if he came out to play his style of play and he didn't do it at Man City, he would have been gone. Let's be real. If he was like hyped up as the manager he was supposed to be, like, and all that, coming to City, this guy's going to play that tiki-taka style. If he doesn't play it, what's the point bringing him here? It's the same with Ten Hag. That Dutch transitional aggressive style that involves possession. If you're coming here for that job, why are you not doing it? Why are you so afraid to implement your style? Just introduce it. Even if we get beat, it's still implement the style. Like, Arteta's doing it.
Some
Fair enough, he
people will
hasn't.
be here next season. Give them a year to prepare for when
Yeah, it's not
when you
hard.
actually do replace the players who can't do it. We saw Conte do it. He came into Chelsea, tried to do the 4-2-4. After 10 games, he binned it off.
That's why he
then
did
they
at
won the
Bari as
league.
well. And when he started at Juventus, he played the 4-2-4, but he realised he's got three amazing centre backs. I'm going to play the same way, but with a back three.
Yeah.
Done at Chelsea.
I mean, I don't think Conte would be successful with us, not just because of the bad culture
I
with
think
the
he would just
players,
call them
but
out. He
they're
would just
just
call
not
those
in.
players
Oh, he
out.
would. He absolutely would. But I just think
So
that
I'm not saying Ten Hag's failing.
he
But
doesn't
needs
have
to put his
winners.
style in.
There are no winners in this team.
I think
aren't
Ten
enough
Hag
winners in this
can
team.
get. I think Ten Hag can get his style introduced. I think he can, but he needs to tell these players, it's my way, or you're
Or the
out.
highway.
Yeah, it's my way or you're gone. Like, it's the same for other players who aren't pulling up trees. Like Marcus Rashford isn't playing that style. If Marcus Rashford isn't interested in playing that way, then get him gone. I know he's called out like channels today and all that. That's fine. I'm not asking him to call me out. I'm not looking for it. But if you're not going to play Ten Hag's method of how he wants to play an attacking player, then go. Same with Fernandes. If you don't want to play how he wants you to play, then go. Like, he needs to introduce his style and get it fully implemented in this team. Otherwise, he will be another one who's hung out to dry, and he'll be another one who has failed. Because the only manager that hasn't technically failed, the only manager technically that hasn't failed at Man United since Sir Alex Ferguson, despite getting the sack, is Jose Mourinho. Because he came in and got asked to do what he had to do. The only thing he didn't do was win the league.
with scraps, win trophies with scraps.
He just won trophies. He says he's here to win trophies. That's what he did.
That's all he could do.
Like,
he was literally asked to shithouse league titles and trophies with the scraps. Like, you can't tell me that after years and years and years, Chris Smalling and Phil Jones, who weren't at their peak anymore, were the answer. They were competent centre-halves to an extent. They had good attributes. But Chris Smalling's solid time overlapped between Louis and Jose, and it stopped when it came to 2018-19. He went to Roma and developed, fair play to him. But by that point, he wasn't
he went to Roma and got
solid
trusted.
Chris Smalling.
The difference is, though, like, whether it be Serie A, the Premier League, Ligue 1, or La Liga, Chris Smalling got asked to play the same role as he did at Man United, and the difference is he had a manager that fully backed him. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Like Chris Smalling literally goes to Roma. Yeah, you might not be the best in Man United in recent years, but we're going to play you how we want to play you. You're going to be that dominant, aggressive centre back for us, and he has been. So, like, I don't see where United. I don't see how we can just keep. I want to see Ten Hag implement that style, and if he doesn't implement it by the end of say midway next year, if it's not implemented, it has wasted time, and then we'll go and get another manager, and then another 400 or 500 million will be spent on this squad. And I'm like, we can't just keep spending. Like, there has to be some sort of middle ground. There has to be. I'm not advocating for the manager to be sacked. I'm just advocating for the manager to actually implement his style, even if it's with players he doesn't trust. He has to at least try. So if he doesn't try, then what's the point? I mean, he's got a player there for his squad he doesn't even use. Like Van de Beek may not be the best player in his squad, but he understands his style of play. Why is he not using him? Like, that makes no sense to me.
I think it raises questions about Van de Beek himself. Quality player, we saw what he was like. I mean, obviously, we've all questioned the recruitment of that. But it just questions. I mean, Nathan, is there anything you want to add on this?
I don't think there really is. Pretty much covered everything that I was going to say as well. For me personally, with Ten Hag, I think if it doesn't get implemented by the end of this season and he loses it even more towards the start of next, we could be seeing a start of the season that Jose Mourinho had in his last season before he got sacked. Same with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We're going to see where they just lose the dressing room and let the team run riot. And I think, does Ten Hag have those principles? I don't think he does. I could see him walking. First of all, if he completely loses it. But it's just going to be rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat until something changes.
I completely agree with you, mate. I completely agree.
The other trouble we've got is, just one last point I'll make is, people are starting to call for Ten Hag to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great and all. You can do whatever you want. I disagree, but Ten Hag's not exempt from criticism, though. I fully agree with you both.
That Ajax job will be available at the end of the season, by the way.
Pardon?
I think he might end up there. I think he might end up going back to Ajax. I think he might ask for his release. It wouldn't surprise me if he asked for his release to go back to Ajax.
And it could be an option because
who would come in?
Ultimately, with Ten Hag going back to Ajax at the end of this season, they're going to be in complete rebuild mode.
And he has already done it before.
Exactly. It is the perfect opportunity for him to step back in. He's got the good foundations of another youth sort of golden generation coming through again. Over the next 3-4 years, he can once again keep implementing that and get Ajax back to where they were. It might not be at the same level as that famous squad with De Ligt, Van der Beek, Hakim Ziyech, etc., etc. But
It'll
the
be winning
foundations are
things.
still there for him to go back, and he'll be winning things, as you said. But it depends. It ultimately depends.
I don't like managers who sacrifice their principles for a squad.
Yeah,
I don't like. I've never liked that.
it's
Like,
defeatist attitudes.
Yeah, like I've never seen Mourinho do this. Like, doesn't matter where he's gone. I've never seen Jose Mourinho sacrifice his principles for a squad. I've never seen Simeone sacrifice his principles for any Atletico player. I've never seen.
Did
Even though
Jose
he changed
sacrifice his principles at Spurs?
No,
Did he
I think
adapt? Did he try to adapt?
I think the one thing is though is he played the same way. I think the funny thing is though is Mourinho said something in his press conference that he was looking for the next job that fit well. I think he wanted to make Tottenham what he had at Man United in his first season, as he did at Real Madrid in his second season, as he did at Inter. He had a team that would play for him. They would be defensively organised, and we all know that, but they would actually play aggressive football. They would actually look to dominate. Like that Inter Milan team was against the back foot against certain teams. But when they dominated teams, they were very, very good. Like that Real Madrid team was phenomenal that he had in his second year. Like people say, oh, they parked the bus, but they scored record
They
goals.
should have won a Champions League.
They should have done. They should have done.
That team was so good.
But you can't tell me that's a part of the bus team because they didn't.
It's not. It's not. It's beautiful.
It's lies. It's lies. And I'm like, his first team in Man United, his first team in the Premier League when he finished sixth in the league, but he still won the Europa League and the Carabao Cup. Nobody cares. I don't care about the Community Shield, but he still won it. But when you look at it, I only saw him defensively mark us up against 3 teams all season that actually were better. That was Chelsea, Man City, and Arsenal. Other than that,
But one of the Arsenal games, he rotated. I remember he had Axel Tuanzebe, I think, at right back because
he did.
Europa League games. Yeah, so it's one of those things. I mean, funnily enough, we'll be coming back to managers very soon. But before we do, it's never a weekend. It's never a Monday night show without ref watch, is it, gentlemen? But I just think that it's gotten to the point now with VAR where we've seen huge errors maybe in as many weeks. Well, I say huge errors. I personally feel the one at the Newcastle game was a huge error because of the fact that they looked for 3 different things. They said it was inconclusive. And by the rule, obviously, if it's inconclusive, you go with the on-field decision. But the inconclusivity, I think, should also lay with the fact that the images we saw of the ball staying in weren't conclusive enough to say it was in, because we didn't know it was actually in play until after the game when beIN Sports released their graphics and as did other forms of television. I mean, that ball evaded 30 cameras?
Yeah.
To say whether it was in or out. And I think that if the referee, I think in that situation, the referee has to go over and watch it properly. And I think any referee with those angles, you can't tell me it's those pictures that were released during the game. You can't tell me that's conclusive enough evidence to say it stayed in play.
Well, in my opinion, it's a difficult one, but this is the first, when I was watching it live, this was the first thing I was thinking. Where is your angle from the goal line technology? Where's that camera? Why aren't you implementing that? Because you could clearly see from that point. Another factor that really drove me mad as well is the fact that they, as you said, reached this inconclusive narrative. How on earth, you're a part of VAR. How can you not be able to say, this is my decision to make it and give it to the referee? You're the ones with the better angles than the referee. If you're going to pass it back, then what is the point of having VAR? You're literally saying, referee goes, right, take a look at that. Oh, we don't know. It's your choice. What's the point in that?
Is it just 2 guys shrugging their shoulders. The referee's almost
Yeah.
got a forced hand there because they've looked for three things and they've gone, we can't see anything. So can you try and figure something out quick because we're struggling here.
We don't know how to do our jobs properly. And in my opinion, if that ever happens, and it should never happen because they have the better footage and the better angles than the referee, so they should
They
be able
didn't.
to make a
None of us
decision
knew
straight
the ball
away.
was in play until after the game.
Exactly, and it's not even that one that drove me mad as well. It was the one that was calling for offside. Because in my opinion, and looking at the laws of the game, that should have been given as an offside goal. Because ultimately, you have to have two men of the opposing team behind the ball.
Goalkeeper's technically the second to last outfield player.
Yeah, and the goalkeeper was pushed up the pitch, which means who scored the goal again? Completely gone
Anthony
online.
Gordon.
Anthony Gordon was offside.
Yeah, that's true.
So that should have been given as a no goal. And the fact that the referee was not able to go over to the monitor and see that angle was an absolute disgrace. And the fact they took over 5 minutes was even worse. And
to play devil's advocate here, I can't remember the footage off the top of my head. Was the ball played behind Joel Linton? So when he headed it back across, did he play it behind him in any way?
No, it was played forward.
Then I've got no plausible deniability for it, and the referees are terrible at their jobs.
Actually, let me get the image just to confirm it.
Here's the thing: I've been consistent on this show, Reece. Obviously, I'll come to you in a moment, but I've been consistent on the show to say that I like the fact that we're giving more power to the on-field decisions because it gives a sense of authority, and with that, it develops, and then suddenly the referees have that authority as opposed to it's because it's not video assistant referee anymore. It's just the video referee, and there's a guy on the pitch just making sure everyone doesn't fight. Like sort of what my job is at under 13s football on a Sunday. Just make sure no one gets into a fight and then we're all good. But I think it's getting to the point now where
drop kicks save the problem.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's after the match and the managers or the dads or whatever aren't happy with my choices. But that's another story for another podcast. The point is the fact that I'm slowly coming away from that because these guys just can't do their jobs properly. How can you have one guy on the pitch and be like, right, I can't tell from here.
Could I just jump in very quickly, Julio? You are actually right. It was headed back. However, Anthony Gordon was actually in front of Joe Linton.
Yeah, I think then it's still an offside.
Yeah, that's the picture that I'm getting from it. Because I remember I was watching one and when that angle came up, we were like, right, that's got to be given offside. And we were just both
when I was watching the game, I can't remember who kept it in and put the cross in, but when I saw they brought the ball back in, I was like, it's not out of play. Because even from like as far away as the camera angles are, I thought, come on, that's out of play, surely. I think in a scenario like that, when you look at those pictures, you say it's not conclusive enough to say it stayed in play. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, after the game, you'll see you got it wrong. But by minute details, which is human error should be plausible. It's the use of the problem is that the human errors that these referees are causing are either so obviously wrong or incompetent, or a lot of these VAR decisions are being made by, like to the minute detail. And sometimes they're still getting things wrong.
And what they're doing is by getting these minute details, and we saw that exactly in these trio of decisions, they are massively overthinking the decisions. It's either that or they don't know what they're doing.
They're overthinking every little thing because they don't want to get criticized, and yet they're still doing it wrong.
Yeah. It's also this.
It honestly needs to go back to basis.
It's money. It's also money as well. Because look who's actually being favoured. But look who's being favoured the most for decisions. Because a list got revealed lately as well. And that says a lot.
Did. Yeah, we should do a field trip. Go to Stotley Park. Be like, oh, what does that button do? Sends Van Dijk off. Or Casemiro gone. What about that button there? What does it do? It gives Newcastle a goal. Because that's honestly what it feels like. It honestly feels like there's Anton Deck in their ears going, right, give the goal now.
And then my personal favourite, what does this one do? It sends Julio after another person on Twitter. Press.
In
Amazing.
what context? I'm concerned about the context.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
So, right, okay, fair enough. You're just going to be like that. Just drop grenades and not tell me when they're
But
going to
that's what
explode or
grenades.
why.
That's what grenades for. You just drop it and go. No
That's not what
context.
the movies show. The movies give me
what-
6 seconds to throw it back.
I'm not giving you a fast 5 option.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think. What do we do with VAR? Because every week we're complaining about the same things. It gets to a point where it's like, right, something needs to be done now.
For me, in my opinion, and I think it's
European refs.
Go for it, sorry. Go on, Reece.
I still stand by what I've said all this time. European officials, because the English can't do it properly.
Yeah, but that's the easy option. That's the competent option. That's what any good recruiter at any job would do. Right, we want the best in class people. Right, let's recruit the best in class to do it. It works. But say, for example, they decide, well, no, we're the English. We're just as good as our jobs. Forget them. What do? Do we scrap VAR now? Because it looks like it's still being used correctly elsewhere. Just we can't use it.
But when I hear English officials saying they're the best at their job, I always remind them, so when was the last time you officiated a World Cup match? When was the last time you officiated a Champions League final? Because if you're that good...
World Cup 2018 where there were no English officials whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the last English official to officiate a World Cup final was 2010. They haven't officiated a final since.
Clattenburg did Euro 2016 as well, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
But ever since, I don't think we've had any representation.
To be fair, just thinking about some of the referee names at the moment, it would absolutely horrify me to see any of those complete idiots. And I go for the championship as well, even manage like a final of any sort, just with some of the sheer shocking performances, mistakes, incompetency. The list goes on and on and on.
And it's allowed to be. And the crazy thing is, though, is they get paid so much money per game that it's actually been allowed to continue.
Yeah.
Like, why? I don't understand why. Like, if anything as well.
Heads up.
Ooh.
Let's have a look.
If anything as well is why they're not letting them learn. Because if you can't learn from these mistakes, you're screwed. It's Udogie.
That was going to happen.
He's finally been sent off. That's two.
What, Chelsea messed this up now?
A couple of group games in Euro finals, yeah. 2018, but not 2020. There we go. Udogie down. Spurs down to 9 men after Udogie shown straight second red. Second yellow.
So Spurs have lost 3 of their main back 4 in one game.
Have indeed.
Turns out Nicholas Jackson, since he had an offside goal, has been shite in front of goal ever since. His finishing's been poor. They've had to be fair, Tottenham did have a double save. Vicario's been excellent for them. But there was 12 minutes of stoppage time in the first half.
Oh, anything could happen.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much time's going to be added in the second half. I'm going to go 15 minutes.
I'm going to say 10.
I still want to know how they managed to get 10 minutes for the game yesterday. Like, how did they get 10 minutes for the Liverpool game? Like, that made no sense.
This is another thing that's probably brought up because I've seen it a lot in the Championship this season as well. Where are they getting all of this? Or how do they even work out the stoppage time? Because in my opinion, it's not being done correctly.
They got it right in the World Cup. Crazy enough, they got it right. They got it right in Qatar. Every minute
they do that everywhere.
Time.
Yeah, they're doing it everywhere now, but even then, I still think it is very inconsistent.
They get it right everywhere, but here, here's the problem. World Cup 2018, VAR was perfect. VAR had been on the scene for about 6 months, and everyone was like, is it, isn't it? World Cup 2018 happened. We need VAR. It's so good. In the Champions League, it was being used good. In England, after when it's just ridiculous at this point.
It's almost like every other league has got a VAR for experts, and then for the Premier League, it's VAR for dummies. And they read that so perfectly because they're dummies anyway. But it's so many issues, and I'm like, it's becoming a joke. And it's quite funny how people call the Premier League the best league in football, Yeah, because all the money. But if it's the best league in football, it surely should have the best officials. And it has the worst. It's got
In
worse
5
than
years since Charlie Austin moaned about that, and nothing has changed since.
In fact, I think it's just got even worse. Like Charlie Austin, Neil Warnock, list goes on and on and on.
To be fair, Neil Warnock was also screaming about Brexit as well, and that was so
Yeah, that
funny.
was a weird one.
I still watch that press conference when he talks about Brexit, and I'm like, the guy's standing there talking to him, going, "What are you talking about?"
Gents,
Like,
let me ask quickly, what
really-
is each of your favorite press conference to go back to? Mine's the Jose Football Heritage one.
Me personally, I love that one. I don't mind the Sir Alex one after the Champions League final. My favorite one is an absolute wild humor, and it's Ian Holloway talking about comparing Cristiano Ronaldo to a guinea pig's penis. It's still the
I've
funniest
not
thing
seen
I've
that
ever
one.
heard. 'Cause
I've
it
seen
made
the
no
one where he
sense.
rants about the whole Rooney saga in 2010.
Oh yeah, and he was right. But no, the one about Ronaldo, like he calls him a beautiful man, but then he says he's got a penis like a guinea pig, and I'm like, how would you know this?
You know, if
But
anyone
it's
was going to come out with something like that, Ian Holloway is on the list. Let's
He
be
is.
perfectly honest.
Ian Holloway has some of the weirdest press conferences I've ever heard, and they're just so funny. I think Nigel Pearson's one when he took the phone call
the
was
ostrich,
fucking
yeah.
Oh my god,
Is that the ostrich?
Nigel
phone call?
Pearson's a weird one.
yeah. In the same
Oh.
press conference, he called him an ostrich, and he took a phone call of one of the media staff. He's like, "Sorry, currently busy at the moment." We can put
Anyone
up some of
still
the
watching? We're talking about press conferences. Get your favorite Football Manager press conference in
Oh,
Yeah,
I've
get
just got
comments,
another one.
please. We really want to know. We need more suggestions.
I've just
My
thought of another one
favourite-
actually. There is
Go on.
another one I've just thought of. Sam Allardyce after the long ball versus Chelsea. And he's like, "Hey, we've out tacticked him." And he's
I
like,
love
"I-
that one. I knew he
he's
would.
like,
He
we
can't take it,
out-tacticked
can
him.
he? He can't
Uh,
take it. He just can't take it that we've out tacticked him, we've outwitted him. I couldn't give a shit, to be honest.
The one that, to be fair, the one that Van Gaal done on Sam Allardyce is fucking ice
What with
cold.
the receipts? And
Here's the
you can
presentation
copy
of
it,
our tactics.
and you can go give it to Big Sam.
Oh, now you just made me thought of an amazing one.
Which one?
Go on.
Marcelo Bielsa's after Spygate.
I haven't.
Where he
I've
just
forgotten that
randomly-
one.
He just randomly
was
gets
the
up his
best.
PowerPoint of just everyone's tactics that he'd spied on in the championship.
Oh yeah.
He just
He basically
gets,
went, "Here you
gets
go."
caught by sending someone to Derby, and he was like, "Okay, let's get the PowerPoint up."
You want to talk about Spygate? I'll show you Spygate.
Yeah,
There's one other one actually that is this is a shame, but this one literally, even though it's still the worst it's still the worst controversial Champions League final I've ever watched. But Carlo Ancelotti in the build up to the Champions League final in Istanbul, and he literally said, "I wish we were playing Chelsea, not Liverpool, because Liverpool aren't a good team.
Oh my god.
It's Chelsea are the team." I still think, even though Mourinho's never lost a European final, I still think that Ancelotti team would have beat that Chelsea team. But that Chelsea team was too good as well. But when he said that Liverpool team wasn't good enough, obviously Liverpool get back in the game because obviously Steven Gerrard was offside, but it's Gerrard, so we'll let him off. But it's still wild that he literally in the build up to that final said they weren't good enough, and they completely mugged it. And I was like, Don Carlo, you've just jinxed it, mate. You've jinxed it.
I tell you one that's gone under the radar a little bit, but it's
There's a
goated
few
in the
Scottish ones.
championship.
Mhm.
Have you seen the Mick McCarthy one at Blackpool?
It can't get any
Is
worse,
that-
can it?
Yeah, that's the
It
one.
can.
They can.
Yeah, I've
Ends up
only
getting
ever
Brady
watched
Mick
that once.
McCarthy in press conferences. I remember the one where you mentioned like someone was making a change. Someone went, they did that with Ipswich. They wanted to go in a different direction. That went well.
There's a Mick McCarthy one that's actually peak. There's another one as well. I don't know if you guys will remember this, but I'll bring it up in a minute. Mick McCarthy after, I think, was that Roy Keane? Was it he called him a cunt?
Oh yeah, I remember.
He
that
called
one.
him a cunt at the World Cup. because he said that the training facilities were not good enough for a World Cup team and that they had cheese sandwiches on the flight. And Roy Keane went, "Mate, you're a cunt." And he sent him home. And his entire press conference when he got asked the question was, "So we've heard that you've sent your captain home today. Care to explain why you sent your talisman home after the start to the tournament?" Yes, there was a backstage altercation between me and Mr. Keane, and I've sent him home. That was it. I've sent him home.
Now the
And
best
I'm like,
when he got
is it-
revenge all those years later when Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane replaced him as the island job.
Yeah.
yeah,
That was
and he said
elite.
it was even better when he actually went back and he went, "We're going to go into this tournament. We're going to have proper training facilities." He fucking palmed him one. I'm like, yes. But I think the worst. So we've talked about the best ones.
What's
I
the
think this is
worst
the
one?
I think this is the worst press conference of all time, or situation for a manager in front of a camera. Raymond Domenech at the World Cup in 2010 after he got abused by his players for sending home Nicolas Anelka, because Nicolas Anelka,
Oh my god,
Right.
that France, that whole France thing in that
Oh.
World Cup.
they should have just sent him home and asked Ireland to fly out. But he called him I can't remember what Nicolas Anelka called Domenech, but he called him something, and Domenech being in charge, he's told Anelka, "If that's how you're going to speak to me, then you've been sent home." And I don't think that was a wrong. I think that was the right decision. But then you have players like Thierry Henry, Patrice Evra. All of them have come out and basically backed Anelka, and they've went against the manager, and they've handed the manager a statement saying his behaviour and his choice was wrong, and they're no longer going to train. And then obviously Patrice Evra famously caught on camera fighting with the kit man or the coach on camera, and obviously he's been dropped for his behaviour. But I think that's the worst one, when Raymond Domenech, who's a World Cup coach, he's done well with France, let's be real, he's having to apologise for sending Anelka home in 2010. And he looked defeated. Like he did. Obviously what he did in that game where he refused to shake his opponent's hand was disgusting. But what the French players did to him was shocking. Like that was horrible. Like, what gave them the right to do that? Like, a player abused him. He's taken action to protect his team and the chances of getting out of a group. They had no chance of getting out anyway because they were shit. And they've decided, "Well, fuck you, mate. We're going to give you a letter. This is what we want you to see on national television, broadcast to millions." I haven't seen Raymond Domenech since, have you? I haven't. I have
We
not
didn't
seen
see
Raymond
Evra
Domenech.
for like 4 years in the France setup either.
Yeah.
Evra was out of the France setup for a good few, not even
Because of
4 years,
that.
like 5-6 years. Yeah, exactly.
Because of that, Thierry Henry as well. Thierry Henry was never back in a France squad again after that. It's because of that. But you look at the players as well that played that last game against South Africa. They still should have won that game. It's still mental. But that's why I hate watching France. It's because of moments like that. I'm like, people say the Italians are bad for it. No, the Italians go after referees. There's a difference. They protect the team, attack the refs. And I'm like, that's how it should be. The Germans just attack anyone. I love the German mentality. The Brazilians just try to beat you, but they can't do it. They're not good enough. Uruguay will just try to bite you or just kill you. I love that. Chile will just outwork you. Argentina will do what Argentina do best. England will probably just hype up their team and then lose to some random team in a quarterfinal stage. Yeah. But God forbid, the French, great team, disgusting attitudes.
Yeah.
What would you say is the worst press conference you've ever seen? That's probably the
John
worst
Carver
thing I've ever
saying
seen.
he was the best in the league.
Say who?
John Carver, when he said he was the best coach in the league.
Oh,
after he
yeah.
took a
That's
mid-table
my
Newcastle
winner.
into a relegation battle.
When was this?
Was that the
Like, what
season
year
they
was
got
that?
relegated as well?
Pardon?
Oh, was that? Oh, right, yeah. I couldn't remember when that was. But I was like, I knew, but I was like, that one made no sense.
He was the last guy before Steve McLaren. So Pardew left for Palace around Christmas, January after Palace sacked Warnock.
Yes.
He came in, and then they were in a relegation battle by the time the end of the season came. And then
I'm the
Gutierrez
best
scored the
coach
goal
in the
that kept them
Premier
up.
League.
Yeah.
I'm the best coach in the league. Mate, you are the best coach.
I felt bad for Louis Van
I
Gaal, when he was rumored, the reports were coming out from newspapers that he was sacked, and then he was in a press conference the next day like, so anyone going to apologize to me?
Who remembers when he got Chris Smalling's name wrong?
Oh, that was so funny.
That's got to be one that's up there.
Hey, ever since he said that, Smalling was solid for United. So Mike
True.
Smalling was clear. But I just felt bad.
That's
Imagine sitting in a room and all these people were like reporting that you were gone, and you're just sitting here the next day, but you're not smug that you're still here. It's like, you guys are just like writing shit. I don't want to be here, but I have to be here. So there's your wine and your mince pie. I'm just gonna walk out.
Incredible.
Jesus.
It is a shame. I hate when it's not the club that made the decision to sack him, it's the media. But that was the worst thing when it was the media.
It's a shame, really, because I really love Louis' press conferences. Louis' press conferences were the best. Anyway, as we're on managers, let's talk some more about managers, but actually on topic.
Several managers, to be exact.
It's that time of the year, you know, Halloween's past, you know, you got your wintry themed drinks at Costa. Well, not Costa, actually, that's not good. Cafe Nero, for example.
Whoa, don't insult Costa in my presence.
No, Costa's gone downhill. Cafe Nero is where it's at. Although they haven't brought back their Black Forest mockers this year, and I'm upset. But that's another story.
Costa will soon be bringing back the peak shit. Don't worry.
No, but its quality of coffee in the last year has gone very downhill, and I'm very disappointed.
Really? I've not had an issue with Costa recently. Maybe where you're going to Costa, though. You might be going to a shit Costa. So don't blame Costa.
Reece, this is England. Everywhere is shit Costa, whether it's the vending machines or the actual places. But unfortunately, where I'm based currently, there's no Cafe Nero nearby, so I have to make do.
Well, here you go. Here's an idea. Move to Scotland. You'll have proper Costa.
Why would I want to do that? I'm terrible with a cold.
Pussy.
I can't help it. It's in the genes. Anyway.
True.
Yeah, it's that time of year. No, I'm not talking about Christmas. I'm talking about manager talk. You know, now we're going to start getting this whole okie dokie thing with managers where, you know, who's going, who's staying, who's in, who's out there shaking it all about. Who knows? The fact of the matter is, there is a lot to talk about with managers. I'll start with David Wagner. Nathan, I'll leave this one to you first.
Well, there's one very certain thing that is going to happen this weekend. Norwich are going to come to the Cardiff City Stadium. They're going to get battered like they did at the weekend. And boy,
and yet still walk away with 3 points.
And still walk away with 3 points. Losing to a 10-man Blackburn Rovers team who haven't exactly been at the races this season. Wasteful, controlling possession, defensively, as we've seen many times under David Wagner, especially with Huddersfield, etc., looking woeful. And they're going to come to the Cardiff City Stadium, get battered by Errol Bullitt, and he's going to be out the door come this weekend.
Didn't we all suggest that was the wrong appointment in the first place?
We did.
Oh, funny that. So if he goes tomorrow,
yes.
He goes tomorrow, who comes in?
John Eustace.
Do they still have that German core, though, at Norwich with the recruitment?
Yeah, but I still think he would be suitable just because he knows the league.
Okay.
It's a good shout, but...
No, it's obviously Nathan Jones.
He already admitted himself. He blew a chance to walk straight back into the Bristol City job or whatever it was. If that job's available, he'll go straight in for it.
That's another. I think it's more likely that Eustace goes to Bristol City, to be honest. But with Norwich, I think they need to completely change their approach now. They've had this German approach for like the past 6-7 years. It's got them up to the Premier League twice, but it's not sustaining that. Daniel Farke, with the way he had it, with those 2 seasons in the Championship, and 1 and a bit years in the Prem. That was the only success story of it. Ever since
But then
from
Dean
there,
Smith coming in, like
Dean
what?
Smith was woeful with that system. Brought through some players that were all right, made use of what he got, but massively underachieved with it. And so did the players that were there as well. But I think
I don't know if he's in a job.
Don't
worry, it's not
we're here
Michael
to
Beale.
search. Thank God.
Chris Hughton back at Norwich.
Oh, that's an interesting name.
It's an interesting name, but
He's currently got a director role at the moment, I think.
I think
he's international level.
He very rarely gets taken seriously, and it's a shame because I actually don't think he's bad at all.
Oh, yeah, he's apparently the head coach of Ghana.
He is.
That's fine. You can leave them.
It would be a good appointment, I think, for it to fit the Chris Hughton style, and with the players that they've got there, it will take a season or two, and with investment to get it going. I know he's a wheeling and dealing manager, but it's the case of how much he can pull it to that extent. And even then, with the players that Norwich do currently have, like the form that they're currently on is grim, and the amount of goals they're conceding.
I mean, I'm surprised.
They're horrifying.
We could see random stuff.
Go on.
Say that again?
I was going to say, we could see something random. We could see Jaap Stam back in the Championship, or we could see Van Nistelrooy in the Championship.
To be fair, Jaap Stam's Reading team was phenomenal.
It was.
Until they had to sell off all their good players because of financial fair play.
I was going to say, what happened in that second half of the second season where he was gone at like Christmas, I think it was.
That was Die Young being Die Young.
They had a good game against us as well in the FA Cup, if you can remember.
Yeah.
Even though we didn't beat them.
They did.
Like,
Nostalgically.
We beat them 4-0, but like we got
it took a while to actually get going against them because they played really well.
Do you know what? I'm surprised that Delia Smith wasn't on the sherry at half time, going out and doing that whole like where are you thing, like round
Let's
2.
Be Avenue.
Let's be Avenue. Yeah, exactly.
I think he would be a good shout. I think Stam Van Nistelrooy would, like, either of those two would be a good shout, or as a partnership would be fantastic for them.
I think Stam is trying to avoid management nowadays, because I think the problem he's got with it is with what he's like and what he wants to ask players to do in this era. He feels like he can't do, in the sense of you can ask a player to do something and they'll take it. They'll take it almost too personally.
I think he can do it, but it just depends. Another one actually is an interesting one is Philip Koku. I thought he done actually okay. I thought he was okay at Derby.
That's actually a good
shout.
Yeah,
isn't he manager of like Urect or Vitesse at the moment?
Mm-hmm. I thought he was okay at Derby. Let's be real. Derby are a shit club anyway. Like, in terms of how they ran it, they've been ran like a shit club. But Philip Koku, his style worked really well. I think that'd be a decent shout to have in any shape or form.
He's another one that worries me a little bit with investment, because this Norwich squad, and as bad as it does have me say it, it has loads of quality in it. But I think it's another scenario of egos invading.
There is one other manager, but I think he is employed.
Go on.
Slaven Bilic.
He's recently left Watford.
I think he's in.
He likes me.
I think he's in the Middle East somewhere.
Yeah.
He likes ego-driven players. He really does. He thrives into that environment. I mean, he got the best out of Dimitri Payet when people were like, "What the fuck?" And then it just got to his head, but he managed his ego so well.
Hang on, hold the back page. Firstly, Chelsea have taken the lead. Nicola Jackson scored. Secondly, Russell Martin, ex-player at Norwich.
Wrong place at the wrong time for Norwich.
Yeah, I think when Wagner went in, I think that might be the best time for him to go in.
Shite player, utter shite manager, utter shite human being.
Thank you, Reece.
Fucking get him gone.
What about Ainsworth? He's unemployed.
Ainsworth's a good shout. for this
Potentially.
Norwich side, but it's just a case of getting the front players actually stop them from underachieving and get them to score those goals. You never know, going to a really direct system might work for them,
Not gonna lie,
but it's just getting it done.
Not gonna lie, we did mention his name a few minutes ago, but how for just pure banter, Alan Pardew at Norwich.
Oh my god.
Not gonna lie, but that would be funny. You know who I miss as well in management? I miss Ralph Hasenhüttl.
The man, as you said, last season, Reece, the second that he leaves Southampton, bye-bye.
What about Nathan Jones?
I'm always right about Hasenhüttl and those kinds of managers. I'm always right.
You are. Nathan Jones going to what Julio said. He wouldn't work at
Failure.
Norwich.
Failure. Instant.
You reckon he wouldn't work?
No, he
He
wouldn't
would
work.
fail.
The
He
way
would
that
fail.
the team is set up, no chance.
Oh, I just
Reece,
thought
you've got
very
me on the edge of
interesting.
my seat now.
This guy worked quite well in the Championship before at several clubs. He actually, until he got a little bit too mental at Rangers, but he was actually a decent manager and he had a decent style. He's currently working in the. Mark Warburton wouldn't be a bad shout for Norwich, especially
Yeah.
possession style of play. And it's actually a good style. His style actually did work in the Championship. It did work at Rangers until he got a bit nuts with who he brought in. But I still
It
forgive him
worked
for
at
bringing.
QPR as well, who you could say with what they had
It's
going
a-
forwards.
It's a psycho position.
Yeah,
I actually
that
think
would work at Norwich.
if Mark Warburton was to, because he's still at West Ham, I think, if Mark Warburton was to leave West Ham and go and get a managerial job, Nolan can go and get the assistant job anyway at West Ham, which he's always pretty much going to be destined for, or Mark Noble, like either or. But Mark Warburton at Norwich wouldn't be a bad idea. It wouldn't be. I think it works, funnily enough, really well. Because those players are not geared towards a pressing style, they're more geared towards possession. And Warburton understands the Championship. Just because it came to mind, I was like, hold on.
Yeah, it's a very good shout.
I'd say he was with West Ham until the summer, actually.
Exactly.
And he's out of work currently, so
You might be taking a break, looking around, but that's a good
potentially,
job.
yeah. But it's been a while since he's been in management, to be honest.
No, it's not.
I mean,
It's not. Not overly, because he was at was it Barnsley job before he went to West Ham with David Moyes? It was Barnsley, I think, and that was only a couple of years ago. So
yeah, that's what I mean.
It's
It's been a little while, just not massively.
Yeah, there's one name I really don't want to see back in the Championship though, because he just doesn't impress me. Scott Parker.
Oh,
He doesn't impress me.
nah, his style of play is banned.
He strikes me as all the gear, no idea. Dresses nice, looks like the fashionable person that
They can't
people
coach.
would hire.
Yeah,
But that's it.
Because
Like,
it's a shame
all
'cause
talk, no
he's-
substance.
put it
He
this
does have
way:
a football
all of his
brain.
games that he's had, Bournemouth, Fulham, 200,000,000% possession, 1-0 victories, and just playing the most boring, tedious to watch, horrifying football ever.
Not-
And
He's a classic
if he
case
comes
of
up- yeah,
And they failed at Club Brugge.
he did.
yeah, but Scott Parker's a classic case of if it's between him and put it this way, like between him and Marco Silva,
Yeah,
obviously Scott Parker gets that team in the playoffs. Marco Silva got that Fulham team to challenge for the league. Do you know what I mean? But it's that kind of difference. I'm not saying they had exactly the same squad, but if you did like a simulation, for example, with Norwich, for example, or someone maybe further up the
If you
league.
put a simulation of Marco Silva as Norwich manager playing the same system 4-2-3-1 as he did currently with Fulham, you put him in the same situation with Scott Parker playing the same system, I guarantee Marco Silva's Norwich finishes about 30 points clear.
Absolutely.
and it's
And you would have
even
a
when you come up
massive
against each
difference.
other, you're talking 3-4-0 victories as well. Literally,
And
just
also you would
because
see
of the style of
strikers
play.
scoring more than 10 goals a season as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Massive
well said.
difference.
On the management debate, I
Mhm.
do want to raise a question to you both because QPR hired a new manager last week. after the whole
And it wasn't
Ainsworth
Michael Beale.
shit show. No, it wasn't, funnily enough. But I wanted to
Yeah.
ask, because QPR are in a tough situation at the moment. And I think when you're
They
in a
always
situation like that, personally, I don't want to sound like a broken record in the case of you go tried and tested. But I think if QPR were mid-table and decided to make a change, like at the end of a season, I think this management hiring would make sense. But I think that when you're October, November, and you're in a relegation battle,
You're
and you've
desperate.
sacked your manager, I feel like you'd be better off going for tried and tested. Not just in the Championship, but you could argue there are managers in League One who are probably better suited for the role than the guy they brought in. Now, that's no disrespect to him. Like, if he goes and does well there and he keeps them up, it wouldn't surprise
Who did
me.
they bring
And
in?
good for him.
I'll tell you
Cifuentes
now.
from Hammarby.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
Cifuentes, wasn't it? Yeah. I forgot about that. We mentioned that on last week's show. I have a problem with Cifuentes, is the fact that I agree. I think, funnily enough, the right time to appoint him was international break. They didn't do that. That international break would have been perfect because not a single QPR player is going to an international squad. So he has a full week and a bit to actually get some ideas across and be like, this is how we're going to play. And then just carry on. It's not worked for him in that way. I think one good thing for him though is his style will benefit over time.
I think QPR though is a very difficult situation.
Trigger
Like the
happy.
transition that they had in the summer, getting rid of Les Ferdinand after all those years as director of football, and boy were they some shoddy years as well. Ainsworth had a good start, but it just didn't work. We all could see from a mile away it wasn't going to work with the amount of player aggression. They still have Idiot's chair and also Lyndon Dykes there moving forward. The rest of the squad is just lower League One sludge, especially defensively as well, which they'll just get ripped to shreds each week. Counter-attacking, getting the goals in from Chair and Dykes, easy. Worked well for them at the start of the season. But when they got worked out, boy, did they get worked out. And the only way that QPR are going to be able to compete once again, in my opinion, it's bad to say it, it's going to be a relegation to League One, a complete rebuild with a new director of football, getting promoted.
A complete new structure.
Yeah, that's the only way. Because as soon as McBeal left, they got exposed. And they got exposed badly of how bad they need a restructure. Now they've gone from it at board level, minus obviously the owners. It now needs to be filtered through, and they've taken too long to do it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But the problem with QPR though is QPR have always been very trigger happy. And I've said this about a few clubs. I've said this about Norwich, I've said this about Watford, I've said this about West Brom, I've said this about QPR, I think, numerous times.
Cardiff as well.
Yeah. Yous are doing the Chelsea Real Madrid approach, but yous aren't a Chelsea or Real Madrid.
Yeah.
They can afford to sack managers because they know what they get in response. You can't. You sack a manager, use spiral. It's complete difference of decision.
We can see that as well. I'm going to add into Watford with that. Ever since they've lost the parachute payments and got relegated, the owners have gone like, right, we're not going to get back up to the Premier League by the time the parachute payments run out. Let's rebuild the squad, cut the wage bill, and now they've got a championship squad. Not anything that they used to have. And now have they got Ishmael? Is it Ishmael they got in at the moment?
Yeah, they gave him a new contract a little while ago, actually.
Losing João Pedro to Brighton has also crippled them massively because that was goals.
Exactly. And that's the reason why they've done it, is because they're rebuilding to be a sustainable championship club and to recuperate the finances that they're going to lose from being in the Premier League. And that's the ultimate cost from getting relegated. And they can see that Ishmael is the tightest glue they're going to have. So they're not going to go for a Watford and they're going to keep him in.
It's a shame really that the parachute payments are that sort of thing that clubs are motivated by. I think they need to look at different ways regarding this.
Yeah.
because where it runs out for 3 years and then that's it, it puts clubs in financial jeopardy. I think they need to change this around. They need to do something with that, because FA are just happy to continue to allow it. They don't care.
Exactly. And the way that another thing you got to consider as well is for clubs where they do let the parachute payments run out, how many of them end up in relegation battles?
Several.
All. For me, it's all. I can't actually think of a team in donkey's years that have actually gone 4 or 5 seasons. So obviously you get parachute payments the first 3, run out for 2 years, and then a backfight in promotion.
Blackburn.
Straight
I think
away.
Blackburn are the only example.
And they took it. They had to go into League One.
They did. I think they're the only example, though.
I keep forgetting Blackburn went down to League One. I don't know, that like period where Blackburn went down and came, it was all fuzzy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe
Mine,
Wolves to an
regressed
extent,
more.
but like Wolves went down, they went straight down again. They came straight back up, stabilized, and then got money. They got new owners come in, but there was
That was
there
just
was like
sheer luck.
4 years. There was about 4 or 5 years between. There's 4 years between when they got promoted from League One and promoted from the Championship.
Plus, not only that as well, Wolves were very pedestrian when they go back up to the Championship.
Yeah.
They were hovering bottom half of the table consistently. Fossen took over. They were in 11th in the league, had a good season the year before. Bang, finished top, spend over 20 million. In fact, just thinking about it now, and quite ironic, Cardiff is the only one. Relegated 13-14, lost parachute payments straight away, up in 17-18. But even then, that was sheer luck on freebies. Can be done if you do it correctly. And Huddersfield nearly did it, actually, when they lost that
they
playoff
almost
final.
did. Yeah.
There's another one.
I don't think there's any other. I don't think there is any other club. I don't think there is.
Like, another few.
West Ham, no. Newcastle, no. Crystal Palace, no. Southampton.
If after like 05, mid 2000s, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because they got double relegated from both. Actually, you could say that Southampton and Norwich both got double promoted from League One.
They did.
Straight back to the Premier League after pretty much Moneyball in their way. But another 3 that I'll add as well is that relegation 3 of Stoke, Sunderland, Swansea.
Yes.
Those 3 clubs, in my opinion, have had some of the worst run-ins after getting relegated from the Prem as a trio. Sunderland, straight down to League One. Stoke have just been relegation, well, mid-table to relegation battle.
Very mid-table. They spent a lot of money when they first went down, and then never came back and never recovered. And then it's the same with Swansea.
They've just been like a yo-yo, they have.
Agreed. Completely agree.
Mid-table, fighting automatics, playoffs, back down, up, down. Horrendous.
Yep. Finito. Who is next?
David Moyes, I want to talk about. Report came out today that even though West Ham are not looking to sack him, it doesn't look likely they're going to renew his contract to the end of the season when it runs out. They have apparently offered him a role to go upstairs, thinking potentially he might retire at his age now. But I don't know. I disagree. I think West Ham disrespected Moyes before. They brought him in. He kept them up. He made Arnautovic look world class. Then they went, okay, thank you, but no thank you. They brought in Pellegrini, who made almost a Horlicks of the situation where, spending 40 million quid on Felipe Anderson and whatnot. Then Moyes comes back in, and then he just about keeps them up. And then immediately they go on a surge from there. Last season, obviously, there was a bit of a hiccup, but they won a European trophy, but they haven't started the season badly. They're looking okay this season.
They are, and not only that as well. I think similar to last season, it was all about winning that European trophy. I can see that happening again, but this time with the Europa League. And I do think they are going to push far, providing that whoever comes out of the Champions League in those third place positions, if they get lucky, I think they could go for another run. And that's what we could be seeing once again. But with At the end of the day, they can't stick with Moyes forever. The way that he has worked with the upstairs and with the,
I think that's what it's coming down
executive
to now.
directors, yeah,
What's happening now? There's a new like leash of life upstairs in terms of recruitment, and it's getting to the point where they're going, we thank you for what you've done, you've stabilized us and everything, you brought us a trophy, etc., but we're going to go in a new fashionable direction and look good.
which
And I feel for Moyes because I feel like he's earned his right to stay there for a long time, personally.
Yeah.
I genuinely think they would move in upstairs because at the end of the day, they've got something to fall back on.
I don't. I think he's still got enough life in him for another job somewhere else. I think he'll take a few months out. If he leaves at the summer, I think he'll be back in a job this time next year because summer will go.
I think the best thing for him is either
Chelsea
go
3-1,
upstairs.
by the way.
Do you want to know one thing?
Jackson again.
I think he could very well be a Jupp Heynckes.
Go back to Everton.
The way he works at Bayern Munich.
Yeah, he comes in,
Always a
stables the
presence.
ship. Stables
I
the
think
ship,
West Ham should do that.
stables the ship, wins the trophy, leaves, comes back when it's shit again, wins another trophy, gets the team organised, new manager comes in, it goes to chaos, he steps back in.
But for
Yeah.
me, always sit back in there in the background in case it doesn't work. But with West Ham, you got to watch as well. They're going to get that full takeover soon
They will, yeah.
with their new Czech owners because I know David Sullivan wants out. Or not so much wants out, but
He has no other choice.
He's done what he can at West Ham now.
Yeah.
I think there's that. Additionally, I think Moyes could go upstairs because the funny thing is though is Moyes has actually done well with the recruitment he's actually worked with as well. Like the folk that are above him, they've actually worked well. They've brought in players he actually likes, plus the flashy players. They've actually gelled really well. So you can bring in the flash, but also have that sense of we still need some steel in this team, some grit, some hard work, and you can add a little bit of technical flair to it, and it works. So I think
Company comes in next summer.
Maybe.
I think Company gets the West Ham job. I think Burnley will go down, but Company's stock will be high.
I think you've got the option where you can put those two together, Moyes and whoever is above him, in a dual role together, both of them 50-50. But I would bring in either you go for an aggressive type like a Lopetegui. In a proper environment, Lopetegui would work. I said it like with Wolves. If Wolves had actually fucking listened, Wolves would have worked. They should have listened to me. They didn't. Lopetegui goes to West Ham. Or you see a former fan favourite return. Lopetegui or Zola. Zola last time didn't have the environment, but he had fans on side and he played some decent football. I don't see a situation where he fails this time.
I do. I think he's been out of it for a little while, hasn't he?
And who remembers his Birmingham job as well?
Assistant work he's been doing. But yeah, Birmingham, to be fair. Birmingham
he was shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Crazy thing is, though, is I could see them doing a Villa. I could see them getting a Lopetegui in an environment that actually suits him. And he would cook at West Ham.
Or a Benitez.
I want him to cook, even though I don't like West Ham. I don't think Rafa Benitez would be a right wide. I think that would seriously
that
set
name has been mentioned on West Ham lips for years.
But imagine
there's been a link there.
That would be a massive shock, though, where you've actually gone for a more consistent style to Benitez. I don't think that. Plus, I don't think he would be accepted at West Ham. He's already managed Newcastle. He's already managed Liverpool, and he's already managed Chelsea. I don't see him being accepted at West Ham, especially when he's a Chelsea rival. You know, I mean, he got away with it at Liverpool.
I don't think he even was accepted at Chelsea when he was there.
No, they didn't accept him. I don't think he was overly accepted in Newcastle. I don't think he was. But at least they stuck by him after they got relegated because it wasn't his fault.
Tricky one.
Or a younger name, like what Eddie Howe was when he went into Newcastle, someone of that ilk as well. It's either going to be a big proven European name, or I wouldn't say a Graham Potter, but
Marcelo
someone of that.
Gallardo's still unemployed after he recently left his job.
That is true. I don't know. I
Eddie
just feel like that would be too
Mar-
much of a jump.
Graham Potter though to West Ham, that would just scream laughing stock. I think
I
Ralph
wouldn't
Hasenhüttl
agree with
could
it
also
as
do the
such,
job.
but I can see it.
Ralph Hasenhüttl to West Ham would be a very good shout. I actually think that would work. That would work.
That would
Most
work, providing that he gets the players sorted, and obviously, and that's going to need a year to implement,
The players
especially
already like
transitioning from Moyes ball.
the players there though know how to press very well and work hard. I don't think he would struggle with that. But what he has to make sure is they don't go back to his 4-4-2 system that he preferred, like the 4-2-2. I would
Yeah.
just stick with the system they have. Just play the style of play he wants to play. It can work in that system. Don't sacrifice the players' positions for your style. You can get your style with those positions perfectly, especially with wide implementation where he can get crossed in the box, which he didn't have at Southampton. He could get that as well, and an aggressive striker that will press for him. They've got something there. But I think he's more likely to be Lopetegui.
Yeah. Here's a different approach, Reece. You may have read this over the weekend. Obviously, with what's going on with Milan at the moment, Pioli is being questioned by a lot of the fans. However,
Again,
it seems that the board are probably looking at the fans and going, like, come on, fiscal responsibility. We're not going to pay money mid-season to sack a manager. So reports have come. Firstly, I want your opinion on Pioli, obviously, and who'd come in after. But secondly, there is obviously talk about Zlatan having some kind of management role in the dressing room that isn't the main manager. And I don't know, it's almost like saying, Zlatan, can you come in and be like the guy who gives the pep talks almost? I just don't know about it. I think Zlatan would suit that well. And, as each day goes by, it looks like Zlatan's influence in the changing room won Serie A for Milan, not Pioli.
Yeah.
And I just, even though I think it would suit him, is it the right way to go? Or would you rather just bring in someone else?
I think putting Zlatan in that position is right because he is a mentality monster. And it was him that changed the whole dynamic. Even though he was injured, Milan won the league, playing good football, but they were adhering to the fact that he was constantly motivating them to go and play the best football. And that worked. I think Pioli himself as a manager, I didn't think he was going to last this season anyway. But he's brought in a lot of players. Obviously, the squad needed to rejuvenate anyway, so he brought in a lot of players. But they haven't been overly as effective. I think the most effective player he's had has probably been Pulisic. From the signs, I think Musa's been a good signing for the midfield. He's brought energy. I think Reijnders has been okay, but he's not created enough yet. He's still missing Benacer to a degree. I think that's what he needs, is he needs to get the players into the right system and then they actually stick to it and he gets his style across. They were playing his way originally, now it's disappeared. But it's only 6 points off Inter Milan. 2 defeats in the league, which isn't so bad. But I think overall, I think Milan will look to make a change on him. I think apparently he's been given an ultimatum this year to win the league or win the Champions League, but he's gone. I think the league is between Inter Milan and Juventus, even though I think Milan can still get back into the title hunt anyway. I think Juventus have just, with no European commitments, Juventus have just been very good under Allegri. And no surprise, because Allegri always thrives. I think so many other clubs are way out that don't compare. But I think it's the two Milan clubs and Juventus are the top three anyway, in any order. But I don't think Pioli is going to last. I don't think Pioli will last.
Who comes in instead of Pioli?
I think it's one of three men. Like, I think it's between Conte, I think Milan would get desperate and bring in Conte to have an immediate win.
But would they
with a
pay
sc-
that salary?
I think they would.
See,
Especially they've
I'm
already
actually in disagreement. I think they'll look at the fiscal responsibility and they'll want to limit the
maybe
wages as much as possible. I don't think they'll be desperate
it's
enough to
possible.
pay a Conte salary. I wouldn't mind it because I'm a big fan of Conte, but I don't know.
I think they would, knowing that what he will bring to the team and what he can get out of them. They'll be in a position where you might see players thrive again that can get in a different way. I don't think necessarily the players have given up on Pioli. You can actually see they're trying to win games for him. I think it's just got to that point where Pioli's been in the job for about 3-4 years. He's consistently been in the top 3 positions, including a title. He's only won 1 trophy.
Jackson hat
He's not
trick, by
won.
the way. 4-1.
Jesus.
Jackson hat trick.
Tottenham are being absolutely
Tottenham
mullered.
imploded.
Color
But
me
I'm like,
shocked.
I don't think the players are actually sick of Pioli in any shape or form. I just think the fact is he's been at the club for about 3-4 years now. He's consistently been in the top positions of the league. He's failed to win a domestic cup trophy. He's only won a league, and he got a Champions League semi-final. When most people wrote him off, I didn't. I said Milan would get the Champions League semi-finals. To be fair, that was my prediction the whole season. I said Milan semi-finals, potentially a final. But I look at it and I'm thinking, they're not giving up on him. I just think they need a change. Like, I think he's taken them as far as he can go, and I think this is the best he'll ever do. I think it's more or less for him. He needs to go elsewhere and do something new as well, because eventually it'll just desecrate his legacy of winning the league when he couldn't do any other job. He couldn't do it in Milan, but he does it at Milan. So I'm like, I think it will come back to haunt him. It's a shame. But I think Conte will come in as like that. I think Conte could be that ready-made winner. But they've already renewed Hernandez, Mainan, and Leao's contracts. You've got the core 3 there where they can bring him in. He'll add to it if he wanted to. Like, I think Di Lorenzo as a right wing back might come in to replace Calabria, even though Calabria has been a reliable player. And Conte won't change his goalkeeper unless Mainan gets injured. He doesn't change goalkeepers. He leaves the goalkeeper as is. He just changes the team to play his way. So I think you would see those sort of changes. I think he would play similar to what he done at Inter. I think he'd be the 3-4-1-2, not the 3-4-3. But then I think that hampers Rafael Leao. But he might play the 3-4-3. He might play the 3-4-3 though, which would be good for Leao. But you can still play his direct play. So that's one. I think depending on how this season goes in the Premier League, I think De Zerbi has always been a choice for Milan fans. I think De Zerbi will be another. His pressing style worked at Sassuolo. It's worked at Brighton. He goes into Milan with those players. They play that style. It's going to be very hard to stop them in the league. And then the last one, it won't be Ancelotti, unfortunately, because he's agreed to the Brazil job. But I think he would have been a good choice. It won't be Spalletti, because obviously he's now with Italy. But you could see
A young manager.
I think the youngest they'd consider is De Zerbi. I think it'll be
Really?
yeah. I think De Zerbi will be the youngest they consider. I think the other one might be another Serie A tried and tested. I think it'll either be, funnily enough, I can see them trying Jose. I could see them trying Jose Mourinho, funnily enough, or Gasperini.
Gasperini. It's an interesting suggestion. That one didn't cross my mind actually. I thought Xabi Alonso crossed my mind first, but
he already managed a team from the region. Atalanta are a Milanese team.
yeah,
from the Bergamo region, so it's not hard. I wouldn't be surprised if any former managers come back into the league. I'm not suggesting Pippo Inzaghi, he failed, but Vincenzo Montella might return to Serie A. He did manage AC Milan quite well, but then they overspent on players and over-diluted the squad and it ruined them. I think you get right second time. You could see Andrea Pirlo return to Serie A in a different way instead of Sampdoria. You could see Pirlo get the Milan job. I think he'd get considered.
He'd get
But I think
considered, but you
I think the
question
youngest
his credentials.
well, he won a cup at Juventus, despite being in a situation where he was in no position to succeed, and he won a domestic cup. Allegri
The
could go
way
back to Milan as well.
potentially,
I think crazy enough, I think the best choice is probably Allegri. If he leaves
yeah,
Juventus, even though he'll be at the Champions League next year, I think he would take the risk. But it's crazy that the team he's building is younger. I think he wants to stay. I think he really wants to stay at Juventus. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did leave Juventus. The team he goes back to is AC Milan, and I would welcome De Sherby. I would welcome De Sherby. I would welcome Conte. I wouldn't mind Conte, but that means one manager. That means one game a week management. I think Allegri can get you the best of both Europe and the
yeah,
league. Not gonna lie, I think he walks into that Milan team, he wins the league within 2 seasons. I think he instantly could win that league because he knows the league so well. I think he's still the best manager in Serie A. Allegri, personally, I think
yeah.
he is, especially for overall credential. I don't think you can point to a manager who doesn't know what they're doing besides Allegri, especially for multiple systems. Like that, he is so tactically versed over different systems, and he just knows how to win. Like it's crazy.
That's fair enough.
But I don't
There
think
is
Pioli lasts. I don't think Pioli lasts.
no. I think we're all in agreement that Pioli will go at some point,
It's not
but
that
it
he's a
just
bad manager.
depends how and what. No, I just think it's run its course. I don't
So
think
have I.
Pioli's a bad manager. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
think
just he's gone to a point now in the last year or so where it's run
Time's up.
its course a little bit.
Zlatan will finish him off for me.
The pep talks will definitely finish it, especially if he motivates the players to play better than Pioli's tactics, which is crazy.
In fact, I'm even going to go for it now. And ever since it was announced that Zlatan was going to be doing it, I think Zlatan will end up as AC Milan manager.
See, I've never thought Zlatan would be a manager, but I feel like he would in that instance because it's almost like he's almost got a feel of it. We've seen before where a number 2 becomes the number 1 and does stuff. We saw it with Di Matteo and Hansi Flick. Obviously, the way the next season worked out didn't do so well, but I think when you're a number 2, you have a different sense of what's going on as opposed to the manager. Like Flick was the number 2 to Lowe in the 2010 World Cup, for instance. That Germany team that should have won the tournament, in my humble opinion.
He was the number 2 all the way for years after that. He was there at the World Cup. He was there at the Euros. He was there for all of that.
Yeah. But you see my point. When you're a number 2, I think you see things differently. And I think Zlatan would do well as a number 2. And then I think to an extent would see what it is, what it's like. It's not just coach, for example. Like you look at Zidane, for example, or Ancelotti. What their approach isn't necessarily about coaching. It's more about management itself. And I think maybe Zlatan to an extent would thrive to that.
Yeah, not gonna lie. You've just mentioned it, but not gonna lie, Zidane as AC Milan manager would be incredible.
Yeah.
Especially because he would get one.
We need I really want to see Zidane back in a job. I don't think he'll ever take the United job, whether it was now or when Oli took it or when Rangnick took it, because he keeps getting linked every time. I don't think there is a job right now that he takes that isn't the France job or Real Madrid.
Or Juventus.
Or Juventus, yeah, that's a good point, actually, yeah.
I wonder when Didier Deschamps will go back to club football, because I think the last club he managed, funnily enough, was Juventus. The last club I saw Deschamps manage was Juventus. I haven't seen him. I don't know who else he managed after that.
I thought he came directly from a job in France. Yeah, Marseille. So he was with Marseille for 3 years.
I could see a few other managers I haven't seen. Like I could see Leonardo Jardim back in a European job. He was an amazing manager.
Yeah, where is Jardim, by the way? No one's seen him since
last time I saw he was Middle East. He was incredible at Monaco. I think he'd be incredible at Milan. I think Jorge Sampaoli would be good at Milan, funnily enough.
Really?
I think I've always liked Sampaoli. I think Sevilla got wrong by him both times, but I think he would work at Milan. I really like his style of play. To be fair, I've always been consistent with Sampioli in this show, to be fair.
Yeah.
Last time I saw Jardine was in the Middle East.
Yeah, he is still there in the Middle East.
His
He's
style
in
of play,
Qatar.
his style of play was generally so good.
Yeah, his stock really fell. You know, he got sacked at Monaco, then got rehired, and then
They sacked him again.
just ever since, it's just been a bit. It's really strange, actually, because I thought his stock would have been higher, and he would have got a job elsewhere.
He's a good manager. He's a perfect
Yeah.
blend of experience and young players as well, and a team that won a league in convincing fashion is why I would have him. Try to think who else.
Do you know what's really annoying? A name popped up in my head today, but it's gone out of my head completely, and I still haven't got it back, and it's really annoying me.
You know what's mad is I still think one day you might see him return to football. I think you might see Arsene Wenger return to football one day as a manager.
No, I
can't see it.
I think that's past. I think if that's going to happen, it should have happened.
I think he could.
Especially that he's had positions with UEFA as well. I definitely can't see it. Once you get involved with UEFA,
I think he could. I know. I just think that he could. I think it would only be in a France job though, like a French job. But not gonna lie, I would love to see him manage Monaco again. Just one last time manage Monaco.
It'll be interesting to see how he implements ideas, if he has any new ideas, actually.
Thierry Henry is his assistant probably, then Thierry Henry takes the Monaco job after him. Properly this time.
Jesus.
Not with some of Henry's last few jobs. He's an assistant at best.
I failed the first time because he immediately said, I'm going to play like Barcelona and Monaco, when he should have went, actually, when I was here in Monaco the first time, we should just be about dominant football.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you went the wrong way. But I think he's learned that when he's went to the France under 21 job or whatever he is doing. He's playing a lot better.
Well, that's the thing. Like when Wenger first went into Arsenal, he stuck with the, I think, 5 at the back system they were donning before he was there until the end of the season. And then at the end of that season, he started implementing his ideas. I feel like Thierry should have done that because they were in a relegation battle at the time.
That's what he did. He told those players, like, we're going to stick to playing we're going to play with the 3-4-3 until the very end, because he's already in that system. But when we go into the new season properly, we're going to play the 4-4-2.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's when they announced that. When he changed the back three a couple of years, it was second to last season. They said, "Well, Arsenal haven't played the 3-4-3 since Wenger did '96." It's because the players were already suited to it. So then after that, we're going to play the 4-4-2. But it's quite ironic that he didn't go to the 4-4-2 straight away when it was only a month or 2 into the season when he joined. So I'm like, why would you waste that whole time when who knows what he could have done?
Yeah, October. He was only there from October to like January.
Yeah, so I'm thinking what he could have done would have been so much better. I do think Thierry Henry at one point will make it as a manager, like properly. I think he has got it in him to do it. It's just what he wants to do.
It comes to adaptability, because I think part of him will probably get annoyed at players because they can't do what he could, which you get that a common a lot in ex-players, new managers. I think what would be smart would be him to go around, do his work experience, build his like portfolio and badges and stuff. And then when he gets an opportunity somewhere, he's already got the experience, some kind of experience behind him to say, okay, let's go.
Yeah. The absolute peak, though, is we know that he doesn't want to go into a bigger job because he wants to stay close to Kate. We know that. He kind of keep his hands away from her.
Yeah, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
One final debate of the evening, gents, I want to bring to you. Wayne Rooney's obviously just gone into Birmingham City.
Yeah.
And it's not had the best of starts. Now, people will say he did well at Derby, but he didn't do well at DC United. The one common thing he had at Derby that he didn't have at DC and now Birmingham was Liam Rosenior. Liam Rosenior is doing all right at Hull City.
He's doing amazing.
So I want to know, I want to put a theory out there. Was Liam Rossini a big part of that Derby team doing as well as they could, even with the points deductions? Or was it
Yes.
Rooney?
For me, I think that in particular it's coming out a lot since Rossini has started off at Hull. Rooney was just the spokesperson of that position. And actually Rossini ran it all for him behind the scenes. And that's why it worked. And that's why they very nearly, with all that Mel Morris was putting them through and everything that the way that he brought the squad together, some of the signings he got, especially on the free transfers as well, and how he tried to adapt it in League One. It was right there. But I don't think the contrasting thing when obviously Rooney went over to DC, the fact that he lost Rossini because he went to Hull, he got exposed. And boy, did he get exposed badly.
Worst record in MLS history for a manager.
Yep.
By a landslide.
And that's
Yeah, I
literally
think-
because at the end of the day, you're not a football manager without your backroom staff.
I was going to
And
say
if you
that,
just
yeah.
walk into a job and say like, "Oh, I'm just going to use what you already have here."
Like Michael Carrick will
Definitely
be
grim.
on manager watch soon, I think. Like, I think he's struggling big time at Middlesbrough compared to McKenna at Ipswich. Ipswich
I
is doing
think
fantastic.
He could be a name for the West Ham job, Carrick.
You could. The thing I do feel sorry
Potentially.
with Carrick, though, just to jump in with that as well, Carrick massively lost the spine of his squad in the summer without the
did.
opportunity to reinvest because Middlesbrough just don't have the money.
Yeah.
They're
I
not
think
in
if
a
he
bad
goes to
spot,
a
though.
job,
They've recovered their season a little bit, though, given
Yeah.
that.
if he
So
goes
fair
to a
play
job
to
a bit
them.
more, if he goes to a job a little bit more investment, you can see him certainly showcase why he's
Yeah.
liked. As for Rooney, though, I don't know what to expect from him. I think he's on a tough scale. I don't think he'll succeed. Personally, I don't think he will at Birmingham. I don't think it's the right position, and I think it's already caused enough friction as it is because of the fact that the previous manager was actually doing okay, and they just decided to bin him. I think massive mistake, which made no sense.
Yeah, I think it's getting to the point now where ex-players who were big names, I feel for managers in League One and League Two who have worked so hard, got their experience and stuff, and are probably better suited to these championship jobs, but are not getting them because they're not a John Terry, they're not a Steven Gerrard, they're not a Wayne Rooney, big
He's
names.
obviously now been sacked as well from his Saudi job.
Even then, like just looking at some of the names that are coming with the championship, there is a massive obsession at the moment. Just adding on to what you've got, are club legends, just random club legends, just taking over. Like, look how many
Yeah.
we've had after McCarthy. Steve Morrison, you could former Welsh striker. There's your connection there. Mark Hudson, former Cardiff City captain who won the league. Connection there. Neil Harris, former Cardiff City player. Another connection. And then obviously when they see after time again that doesn't work, time to switch it up. Mick McCarthy, disaster. Sabri Lamucci keeps us up but decides not to like the approach. Change it again.
There's also an obsession. There's also an obsession to go outside of the UK.
Yeah.
Like we'll just talk about the Cifuentes one. I remember we did a show in I think April. We were talking about Sunderland, and you were saying that obviously Farioli, who's at Nice currently, was linked with the Sunderland job at the time, as he was with a whole host of championship jobs. Even though Tony Mowbray had done such a good job taking over from Alex Neil and getting
Really,
Sunderland
it's
to
to implement that flair, because I think they find that with a lot of these, well, you can say English managers, they just grind out results and they work to the championship system, and by going abroad, they think, okay, what we've seen over the last couple of years with certain managers, Nuno Espirito Santo is a big one. I know he was a big name coming into the championship at the time, but the way he got that Wolves team up was fantastic. And other managers who have worked as well, your Jaap Stamser we've mentioned earlier as well, Daniel Farke, another option, Marcelo Bielsa, even though he was a big name. It's worked and works and works and works. But when you bring in your types like Paunovic, another example, there's other aspects where it could be a complete disaster.
When
And you might
Wolves,
imagine-
when Wolves and Blackburn went down, they
Yeah.
got, what was it, like Henningberg and like Solback and all these just names, somewhat
That's right.
fashionable at the time. Next thing we know, you've got your Bowyer coming in, being like, Bowyer, who I'm convinced is a manager who can't keep a job longer than a year for
Yeah,
whatever reason.
yeah. He's
And
a
then-
Boyer's he's also an idol of Jude Bellingham, which is mental. Jude Bellingham said that's one of his football idols. Zidane and Boyer.
Yeah, I think
mad.
you had, like, I remember Blackburn went through like 3 managers in one season. I think one of them was like Michael Appleton, who was only about for like 60 days or something.
Yeah.
Then I think Gary Bowyer came in, steadied the ship. And then ever since then, Gary Bowyer's, I think the amount of jobs I've seen him go into where he's there for a few months and then he leaves.
That's his
But it's
job. He
just-
just gets paid. He just gets paid to show up a bit and leave.
Yeah. So I think
just
that
He showed up.
tried
That's
and
what I call him.
tested, I think if you're going to go, you need to be in a certain position to take risks like that. I don't think you're in that position if you're bottom of the league like QPR are.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
Of all the clubs in the championship this season, they were the ones that
Couldn't
absolutely
afford
not.
to make it.
Those two, QPR, Sheffield Wednesday, are the ones who had to play it safe and go with the experience. Because no matter if they lose the risk, they are going. They are going down.
100%.
We're just looking to see how Darren Moore's doing at Huddersfield.
Probably benched.
He's doing all right, but they're another one that's at risk.
Well, there's not much you can do with that crop of players, is there? I mean, what's the championship bottom 3?
Horrible squad.
Rotherham, who are always going to be down there, Queen's Park Rangers and Sheffield Wednesday. There's a 5-point gap between Huddersfield and Rotherham. You know, Coventry are down there, Plymouth are down there. You know, like there's some big names down there. Like Birmingham are all the way down there now. Birmingham are in 15th.
Yeah,
already.
Considering they were in the playoffs, well, right around the playoffs. Well, you can say weeks ago.
What was it? Yeah, exactly. Like 4 weeks ago, and then they've had 3 losses and a draw ever since. And look where they are now. The championship changes.
It does
so quickly.
For me, it's the tightest in the last 10, 15 years.
100%.
Literally, if you go on a good run, you're in the playoffs. Like, look at us. We have 1 less win than Leeds and Southampton. But if you go on a poor run, losing 3-4 games, you're in relegation battle straight off. So really, it's just a case of staying consistent this season. If you lose your consistency or go on a bad run, you're right down there. You're out of the picture. It's going to come in waves, and it's good. Boy, it's going to be exciting.
The worst thing about Birmingham as well, for example, is I don't want to say I voiced it into existence, but I did say that the minute Rooney goes in, they're going to go down the league. It's not because I don't rate him as a manager. It's just that the players just won't care because they had a manager that worked for them.
Yeah.
They had a system and a style that was working for them, and the owners just decided to bin their manager. Of course, they're not going to be interested in Rooney. They're definitely not interested in him. Because look at them, immediately they went from promotional spot to fighting for mid-table in the championship. Their owner sabotaged any hopes of Birmingham getting promoted. Physically sabotaged it.
Absolutely.
Which is mental.
And on that note, I think we'll call it an evening.
Yes.
2.5 hours almost on this tonight's show. I told you, small amount of topics, but a lot of juice behind the content.
What we love to see.
Yeah. Thank you for everyone who watched this evening. Really appreciate it, or listened rather, on Spotify. Nathan, where can we find you?
There's my socials, AWNYC. Everyone knows where the channel is. Back to the videos this week. We've got the video where David Wagner is going to get sacked after we destroy Norwich. You heard it here first. You know where to go.
I will be there no matter what. And Senor Bagpipes, where can we find you?
I don't like the bagpipes, by the way. So you can find me right there, Weekly Steel Chair on YouTube, which obviously I did 2 streams at the weekend, funnily enough. I did my watch along, and then I did a gaming stream there'll be some shows this week, some new content coming out as well, some stuff like that. And obviously Devil's Rising on Twitter. And you can find me here as well.
No worries. Thank you
Gotcha.
for everything this evening, gentlemen. From us at the World of Football podcast, good night, and we'll hopefully see you next week.
Live on YouTube. And listen back on Spotify. This is the World of Football podcast.